inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios. Great Lakes Honda City coming to you on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. They're open for sales and service Monday through Friday. Go and see them. Let them know that DT sent you their way. And you could, of course, get a sneak peek of what they have to buy and lease. The new and used vehicles are on GreatLakesHondaCity.com. So don't miss out on the opportunity. I've been going there for over a decade, and I absolutely love my 2025. I call it the black on black on black. And that is the Honda CRV, black outside, black interior, black leather. Just, it's awesome. So, loving it. And with the thunder we've been getting, maybe I should call my car the Black Lightning. So, a little ode to DC Comics. Appreciate Great Lakes Honda City for all the work that they do. We're up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT. So however you're connected with the show, we thank you for hanging out with us where sports meets that thing called life here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So once again, Facebook.com and YouTube.com, both /Wake Up Call DT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. Very excited this morning to be with you. We came with you a different way. So we are live on my personal page and then shifting over to the Facebook business page because there's something to be said about these companies that restrict your ability to promote your own show. I think they just do that when you don't pay money. I think they just do that when you're successful. I think they just do that when they want to try and hinder people from organically building anything without having to pay for it. So I don't really know what the justification is, but they call it spam, they call it limiting reach, they call it all this garbage, when in actuality, if you talk around your phone long enough about something you don't like, you sometimes get punished for it. And that is not America. That's called censorship. That's also something that would make me think more of Nazi Germany or maybe North Korea or China, but keep doing what you're doing, America. You're doing a great job. So I'm being facetious. I'm being real. They need to change it. So they're hurling themselves toward my annoying moment of the week, but I really don't understand why people get punished for promoting their own brand. By the way, this same company that did that, and I won't name the name of the company because for some reason when I say it around my phone, I seem to get punished for it, even though they say that they don't listen to us. So when I have put some things out here before, I've had to defend myself. I had somebody claim the rights to my voice from like the Middle East, and I had to fight with this company that's currently limiting people. I had to fight with them that 41 seconds of me talking belongs to me, and then they had to decide whether or not they were going to lift the copyright, and if they didn't, they were going to let random people make money off of my voice. Tell me how that makes sense. But just remember, during the Obama administration, they were talking, and I don't know if this was a bipartisan thing or what it was, but they were discussing about free internet, protecting the internet, making sure that our freedoms are secure. And I remember driving in the car going, yeah, this smells like something that's going to not really be what they say it is. And since those moments, around those moments, we have been punished on the internet for free speech, and we've been punished on the internet for simply asking why there is this invasiveness and why there is this control and censorship. We've actually been punished for saying that, which is not freedom. It's not America. And if you want to talk about a dictatorship and you want to talk about control, well, look at what happens on the internet. There's people that threaten to kill people. There's people that write horrible, heinous, disgusting messages, and I don't ever see them get limited. But when you promote your own company for free, apparently that's a fireable offense or a timeout offense. So let's make the internet better. Let's actually make it free speech, and let's start cracking down on hate speech, negativity, and evilness, and not cracking down on people and asking them if they own the rights to their own voice. So that's what I have to say about that. Inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Ross is with me here. Of course, on Wednesdays, you know the show is split into 2 videos, 2 separate feeds, and that's because our fantasy football content is a show within a show. So we'll be doing that later on here this morning. But Ross is joining me today to speak on college football going into Week 13. The college football playoff rankings have been released, and the last 2 weeks I've done a show following the rankings. Well, last night I had Syracuse football interviews going into a Syracuse football game that they played, or basketball game that they played at midnight. I'm kidding, but we got out at midnight and I went to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm not going to complain. I love my job. I love to do what I love and love what I do, and I love being there. I was just confused why we're having Tuesday games at 9 o'clock, and I can imagine that Monmouth is probably confused about it too, but you know, I guess the ACC network had to slot in Syracuse at a horrible time. But I mean, Duke was playing Kansas, so that's something to look at, and Duke won that game. So Ross and I here this morning. My shirt is not swearing. This is an Italian shirt. These are Italian colors, WTF, and it says "Where's the food?" because I'm a proud Italian and Hispanic.
That's my whole life's mantra, is the WTF, the food. I'm always saying, where's the next meal coming? Where's the next tasty food?
Yeah.
Especially Italian food, Mexican food. I love it all. Chinese food. I love all the food, and it's making me hungry just seeing that shirt.
Yeah, so Ross and I here this morning with you. We're going to talk about college football Week 13, the college football playoff, and like I said, doing a reaction show the last 2 weeks. Ross and I will be the reaction show for this third ranking release of the 2025-26 season, and we'll get into Ross's Jets and my Jaguars. We're going to bring him in picture-in-picture, fellow broadcaster, and more than anything else, my brother, more than a friend, somebody I love dearly, and every time we get the opportunity to talk, it feels like I am back living in Dunmore, Pennsylvania, and Ross and I are about to go see a three-peat movie. We're about to go see 3 movies on the same day. So, with that being said, I bring the man of the hour into the broadcast, Mr. Turetsky. How are you?
I'm doing well, and in the words of Schwarzenegger, Jamie!
It finally lets you do it. Normally on Zoom, because you do it so ferociously, it lets us hear the beginning, and then it like mutes the rest, so you hear and I'm like, man, that's a disservice to Ross. I mean, this is something you need, folks. And by the way, if you've never seen Jingle All the Way, then you haven't properly celebrated the holiday season and properly celebrated Christmas and Hanukkah.
You don't know what the Turbo Man is,
Yeah.
and Sinbad and Schwarzenegger fight over the last Turbo Man doll. If you don't know what that is, go stop whatever you're doing, pull over on the side of the road if you have to, find it on your phone, find a TV screen, watch it now, get in the holiday spirit, because we're almost at Thanksgiving. We're 8 days away from Turkey Day, and then it's Black Friday, and then it's Christmas shopping. A lot of the local radio stations here, it's all Christmas music already.
Yeah.
That's a little too much. Some of them did it as early as November 1st, the day after Halloween. I'm like, no, that's too early. I don't mind if you do it after Black Friday until Christmas, because that's about a month. That's fine. But I don't want a month and a half, 2 months of Christmas music. As much as that makes me seem like I'm a Scrooge, and that's Bah Humbug, that's too much Christmas music. But you got to get in the spirit. Put on Jingle All the Way from 1996. It won't disappoint. There's the late, great Phil Hartman's in it. Rita Wilson, Tom Hanks' wife's in it. A lot of great people are in it. But overall, it's Schwarzenegger and Sinbad fighting over the last Turbo Man doll for their kids, and insanity ensues. There's even like a run-in of Santa Clauses in the movie, and there's like bad Santas in the movie. It's a glorious movie. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. But it's and obviously him calling out to his son when his son is about to potentially fall off of the side of a building. Jamie! So there's a lot.
Get to the chopper. Get down. Hasta vista, baby.
Now there's a chance that we could see the return of Arnold Schwarzenegger in a Predator movie, since they keep making these Predators. So I think that he should come back, and he's learned so much in fighting them that I think Arnold should come back in dreadlocks, looking similar, hoping that the Predator thinks that they're the same person, that they're the same being. So he walks up, and like the guy looks at and like the Predator's scanning him, and he's like, not to worry, I'm one of you. So like, I feel like they should do that. Who are we fighting today? The aliens? Yeah. So I mean, I feel like it would be a very good. I don't know. I mean, they could do a thing. Okay, so how about this? Go with me on this. We're gonna bond two movies, right? We're gonna bond the movie Twins and of him and Danny DeVito. So we're gonna bond that movie with Predator, and it's going to be him with his arm around a predator and the predator looking at him, and it's going to be a sequel to him in Predator, but also a sequel to him being the twin of Danny DeVito.
I would love it. I'd buy a ticket right now. And then we could throw in the Running Man movie because they did the new one with Glenn Powell this past weekend. He was in the original Running Man movie from the Stephen King book with a reality show. You have to run for your life to make money or else they kill you. And everyone's trying to take you down. I heard there's like a picture of Schwarzenegger as like a nod to him in the new Running Man movie, but he was in the original Running Man movie. So there's a lot of Schwarzenegger content or rumors that he could be in things like that. But I would sign up in 2 seconds. And I think it'd be awesome if he just somehow transforms into either a robot, an alien, or the Predator himself out there in the future movie. But they keep making it sound like they're getting closer to doing it. But I keep saying he's in great shape, but he's 78 years old. Let's get on it now while we still have Schwarzenegger. We can't wait too long. These guys aren't going to be around forever. Even Danny DeVito just turned 81 years young. I love the guy on the sunny Philadelphia, but the guy's not going to be around forever. Let's get moving now so we can see these great actors while they're still here.
Yeah, we gotta figure it out. Got to make it happen. There's been enough movies that make you kind of scratch your head and say, why would you do that? I'm saying, and for some odd reason, everything's getting a sequel. So I'm surprised there's not a sequel to the Titanic yet. So I think they should call that one Rose. It should be Rose versus the Door, or Why Didn't You Share the Door, or something like that. By the way, it makes me happy because when I was going back and seeing that, my biggest issue was when she was like telling Leonardo DiCaprio to never let go, and you just can't, and I gotta be with you, and I'm sad. But she's on the door the whole time, and she doesn't decide to share the door. And there was actually a Facebook group, I don't know if it's still out there, but there was a Facebook group, and this made me very, very happy. A Facebook group that believed what I believed, and it was called like Rose Should Have Shared the Door. And there was a bunch of people on Facebook that they're my people. It was like growing up.
I think she's the greatest villain in cinematic history. Move over Heath Ledger's Joker, Joaquin Phoenix, Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men, or Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. I think she's the number one cinematic villain in the movie history because she didn't share, and then what's even creepier when I just saw a podcast talking about this. When she eventually dies as the old lady on the ship and everything, throws the jewel, the heart of the ocean, back into the waters, no one gets it. Yeah. Grandkids have used that or whatever it is. It's very valuable. She then goes back, forget the husband she's been with for the last 50 years. She then goes back and has like a fantasy wedding with Leonardo DiCaprio's Jack on the ship, pretending like they're going to go back and live their lives together in heaven or whatever. What happened to the husband that she just spent 50 years with and had kids and grandkids? He's chopped liver. They don't even care about him. He's thrown into a garbage can somewhere, and she moves on with Leonardo DiCaprio, who she just caused to die years earlier. I think it's insane. Like, they totally forget about the husband that she actually had a life with. She knew Leonardo DiCaprio's character for like 3 days. And then she's like, 50 years? Forget that. I want to lust over someone that I hung out with in a steamy car for 3 days and then let go and let him die because I wouldn't share the door. Yeah. Number one villain in my book in movie history. Yeah, but that's my soapbox.
And she can't even go to jail because she didn't technically kill him herself. The water did. But the reality, and that's the other thing too, is she has an alibi. So what was I supposed to do? I fell off the ship. I was in shock. I was scared. I was nervous and worried. By the way, whatever happened to the guy who pushed all the women and children out of the way and got on the boat? Also another villain. He's like the Jafar of this movie in Titanic. But crazy how it was like, do I choose the man or do I choose the jewelry? She chose the jewelry over the man, then threw the jewelry into the ocean, and so she let the ocean have them both. So technically, did she not murder two things? Is she not responsible for the loss of both Leonardo DiCaprio and the jewel? And so I think that there should be a second one. I think Leonardo's ghost should come back. I think it should be a thriller.
Justice for Jack. Jack gets revenge, and I think it would be glorious.
Yeah,
And then
and
maybe
I think
up
what
with
you
Billy Zane, maybe the bad guy Billy Zane, the fiance, maybe him and Jack will somehow team up and go after Rose. Who knows what will happen?
yeah, and I think what should happen is I think her husband of 50 years should team up with the ghost of Leonardo DiCaprio to go up against the biggest villain in cinematic history. So Rose, and once again using, see, you talk about the lust and all this stuff, and it's in the Bible about like looking at a woman and walking up and letting this beast devour you, and there's a lot of kind of teaching to that, metaphor to that. And so I think of that. It's like, she's like, yes, you can draw my body, you can use me. But maybe this is what Rose did when people are like, they saw the iceberg from like 50 miles away. Why didn't they start turning? I think when you go back and you watch the movie, in the movie Titanic, Rose set this whole thing up, allowed herself to pose nude so that she could use her lust to grab Leonardo DiCaprio, who secretly was wealthy and had an offshore bank account, and then she went in, and because you're thinking, why are these people so stupid that they didn't just turn the wheel of the ship? She had put something in there. She took like one of her bobby pins out of her hair, stuck it in there so that it jacked it up just a little bit, just enough so they couldn't turn it all the way, so she could crash the boat to kill Leo to ultimately get his money. I think that this was a heist. That's what Titanic was.
It's like the thriller idea. Like this definitely could be made into Martin Scorsese. You get Martin Scorsese to direct the sequel. Like he could make like a gangster mobster movie out of it. I think it could be quite the thriller if you add all these ideas to it. I did remember here a while back though. They were apparently after it made so much money, the original movie. There were executives, of course, because everyone wants to make sequels and make money off everything, that were literally trying to pitch Titanic 2. And people are like, even James Cameron's like, how is there a Titanic 2? The ship sank. It's over with. Right. So it seems preposterous. But I guess there's a way. There's talk for years, including recently, that they might actually make a new ship, call it the Titanic 2, and have it set to sail. And hopefully, bad stuff doesn't happen again. Yeah. Now that we're over 100 years later. I would never want to go on that boat. I don't care. Everything is a lot more upgraded technology. It's 113 years ago since the 1912 boat sinking. There's no way. There's bad juju on that. There's no way I would go on any ship that's called Titanic. So there's apparently going to be a Titanic 2. There's going to be a boat that's going to go out to sea. But I just wouldn't go on it. But yeah, they, of course, Hollywood executives, they run out of ideas. They were trying to make a Titanic 2 within like a year of the original movie and how successful it was. I'm like, there's some movies have to be a one-off. There should not be a sequel. There's no need to be a sequel. And especially when the whole story's been told and the ship is gone, there is no sequel. So unless you're going to do the fantasy world, ghost world that you came up with, I don't want to see a sequel to Titanic. But I don't know about you, but I would never get on a boat that's called Titanic. Bad.
No, and the thing is like, and that's what I was saying, Hollywood just being boring and just stealing from people, and they've run out of ideas. So you're going to do the sequel to a movie which has no sequel, and you talk about calling something that wasn't great in the hopes that it would be different. I don't know anybody that's going, this baby looks like a Hitler. You know what I mean? I don't think there's anybody out here going, when he grows up, we're going to just morph his mustache a little bit, change him up. We want to take another shot at this name and see if we can have a really good person that has this name. So it's
No, I think that name is gone. I don't think anyone can use that name anymore. I think that name was a one-off. I don't think that name is coming back.
There's a jersey hanging somewhere in Germany that's retired the name. So, but it's a very scary thing to think like, let's take something horrendous, horrible, and let's see if we can make another one of it. Let's just give it one more shot. Like I think if there was a king anywhere or a leader anywhere, you don't name him Pontius Pilate, right? Because we know what happened with Jesus. So there's a lot of things, Ross. There's a lot of names that we don't use the second time around. And I think Titanic is definitely one of those names to probably leave. If you told me a ship was named Titanic, that's like this is what I wish dating was. I wish dating had like a disclaimer above somebody. Like, you see a ship named Titanic, you're walking toward it. It's going to be a great ship, babe. We're going to have a great time. Can't wait. I got a ring in my pocket. I'm going to ask her to marry me. I see it's named Titanic. I turn around. I say, babe, it's been great. Obviously, God doesn't want me to be around this ship. If you want to go, good. If not, let's go this way. Let's go grab a slice of pizza. I wish there was a disclaimer in dating that above somebody's head, it was like the name or phrase that lets you know that this was Bad News Bears, because a ship called Titanic, that's an easy out for me. And I think that there's other things in this world that.
Well, I think if you were even just dated and like they happen to have the same name as an ex of yours, I don't know if you've had this before. I think you'd be a little bit freaked out and like, even if the girl's as amazing as possible, she has the same name as an ex and it ended bad. You'd probably like, I don't know if I should take my chances with like a second Melissa or whatever the girl's name is. You'll probably be a little bit hesitant to go back in that well one more time, even with a different person. That has bad vibes, bad juju, and you don't want to see what the sequel of the trilogy will be of the same name. So even in the dating world, I would think that certain things or even characteristics or personalities you might see in someone else that you've already experienced with in a negative way, you probably want to stay clear of that in the future.
Yeah, my mom told me I can't date anyone with a K. Because for some odd reason, not on purpose, there was a run of K names, and it was just not good.
You can't date my brother Carl, I guess, because he's spelled with a K, so I guess he's off limits.
Yeah, Carl is always off limits, but
you don't want that bushy beard. He's got that furry caveman beard, like he's in an episode of Survivor.
Yeah, the problem with Carl is I can't date a K, and I also love women. So there's those two things not working for my guy.
Carl doesn't think that's an issue because he believes every man or woman, but definitely every man, he believes lusts over him and he makes them want him no matter what their sexual orientation is. So my brother is very delusional, or as the kids call it, delulu. He's very delulu. He's going to want lust over him. You could be Brad Pitt with 20 girls next to you, but you would throw those 20 girls away just to be with my brother, because in his warped self-esteem and mind, he believes that he's the number one that everyone would come after and want.
Speaking of movies and TV shows, if you have not seen this TV show, they made one about Carl's life, Ross's brother. It's called Eastbound and Down. But
I love it. Kenny Powers. That show's awesome.
That to me, I picture it, and there's just moments. Carl, I send you my love. I very much do. There's moments. Carl is still responsible for arguably the highest ranking of wasted hours in my life. Like the moments that he showed. He purposely, I think he did this on purpose, but he picked horrible movies for Ross and I to sit through. Like movies that they would use in the place of waterboarding somebody. Like these movies that would...
He wanted to spend time with you. I don't think he wanted the experience to ever end. So he picked the longest, crappiest movies, The Alamo, Babylon AD, just to name a few. Coke Zero Airplanes and all that. He just wanted to spend quality time with you and never wanted it to end. So you should feel yourself that it was that it's the ultimate form of respect, that he just loves you that much. But he also made you torture to watch the worst movies ever imaginable.
Yeah. He found the worst of the bunch.
Punisher Warzone's another one.
Yeah, he definitely. And how he had a stack of DVDs at his house next to his television that was like, and I'm not exaggerating, there was about 70 DVDs stacked on top of each other.
It's grown higher.
And it was like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and it was full on leaning hard right, but did not break. So I'm convinced that he has used a sticky adhesive of sorts. And
I don't think you want to know what adhesive is.
And it's literally kept it. But like, I'm not kidding with you folks. Like anything on this planet, gravity pulls it down. His thing, like his DVD tower is not, it's not a tower, it's just DVDs, but they're stacked and they lean to the right, and they've never ever fallen over. And it makes no logical sense to me whatsoever. So I marvel at the fact that this man lives. I think that Carl lives temporarily, like halfway in Stranger Things. I think the reason why that doesn't fall over is because parts of his house are in the upside down.
Very possible. And I think you think that 70 was impressive. He is now like tripled that. He still is one of the last few people who still collects DVDs. No Blu-ray, no digital copies. He doesn't even want to stream most of the time. He's like, oh, you can get it on Netflix or Disney Plus. He's like, no, I don't want to stream. He wants the hard copy, tangible DVD cases, the collections. It's like his pieces of art. He collects them. Christopher Nolan, the legendary director, he would be a big fan of this because he's always saying you need physical media, physical media. You never know when the streaming service might take your thing away, which could happen. My wife the other day wanted to find a movie from 27 years ago, a classic rom-com with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, You've Got Mail.
Yeah.
We have all the streaming services possible. It used to be on Netflix. Now it's available, but not for free. You have to pay $3.99 to rent this movie for only a day or two, and then it's gone forever. You have to rent it again. Yeah. Where we have every imaginable streaming service possible. Ones that have like weird planet names to them. We own every streaming service, but they do not have that movie unless you're willing to pay for it. So that's the annoying part. But yeah, my brother has every DVD case, so he still has the DVD player going. So he doesn't ever have to worry that he doesn't have the program because he doesn't need to pay $3.99 to stream something because it's not available. He just pops it in. He puts on movies all day long, all night long. He's up. He's still probably up from the night before right now. Probably tuning in and probably flattered that we're talking about him, but also annoyed that we're talking about him, teasing about his collection and all, and his adhesive work and all that glorious stuff. Yeah. But he has now like tripled his DVD supply. I still buy him DVDs. That's how we finally saw Deadpool Wolverine the other day. And then with his son Steven sometimes knocks over some movies, it's the end of his world. He goes berserk, and he has to be calmed down that the boy is like 5 years old. It's not the end of the world. You'll be okay. But he's like, how dare you touch my DVD collection? That's probably his prized possession in this world.
Yeah.
I remember he has a wife and kids, but his DVDs are still his prized possession in this world.
Yeah, and he's sitting there right now, laying in his recliner, listening and watching the show, going, "See, I told you Dan loves me." Like that's what he's saying to himself right now.
Definitely saying that. He probably has his hand down his pants, Al Bundy style, and scratching himself and sniffing and saying he's obsessed with me. He can't get enough. He can't quit me.
Yeah, it's amazing how this broadcast has begun today. Always.
We haven't talked any sports. Yeah. We just have all talked pretty much about my brother and about adhesives. So that's about it. And about the number one worst person in the world, Kate Winslet's Rose Dawson, whatever the heck she called herself. She's the number one villain in the world. That's all we've talked about. So things that happened almost 30 years ago from the Titanic movie, that's the main topic of this. All this stuff on the top of the screen, we're going to talk about College Football Week New York Jets, Jaguars, the rankings for the playoff system. That's all a ruse. He just wanted you guys to tune in, sports fans. We're not going to talk about any of that. We're just going to talk about weird, erotic stuff, Kenny Powers, adhesives, Titanic 2. That's all we're going to talk about. He tricked you. He fooled you. And now you will suffer through this broadcast.
And can you let it be known that Ross, a card-carrying Jewish man, said the worst name that was said this morning was Rose and not Hitler?
That's worse than Rose. Rose is bad, but not at that level. I wouldn't go that far, buddy. You're about to get yourself canceled on this Facebook show. I really want to name the name. I'll name names. You don't care for Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. They're limited your video access. Let my buddy free his videos up. Stop limiting how many reels or videos he can post, and destroyed his company that's been around for so long, over 20-something years. You don't want to be the bad guy. I will be the bad guy. I'll be your muscle. He's upset with Facebook. He's upset with their CEO, and he wants to be able to do as many videos as possible.
Yeah, just let a person do their job that's doing things the right way, or just keep providing opportunities for hate speech and for people that loathe each other to continue to attack each other. They didn't cause anything or stop anything that came my way when I said that Indiana wasn't the number 2 team in the country. So, with that being said, Ross and I are here this morning with you. Happy to be here with you. And I have a lot of thoughts about everything that Ross just mentioned. I feel like there's different places I can take it. I do want to go into the college football playoff. I have 2 analogies, Ross, for Notre Dame. Because if I hear one more person tell me that they passed the eye test, I don't know what I'm going to do. So here are my 2 things about hearing the eye test, okay? Number one, college football is not an ocular exam. You're not putting your hand over one eye. If I go into the committee and there's 12 people, 13 people sitting at that table with their hand over their eye and there's a bunch of logos and whatever one they could see is the one they pick and Notre Dame is the giant E at the top of this thing, that's the ocular exam. This is college football, okay? So if I go in there and I see that your ocular exam has Notre Dame as that giant E at the top that we all know from that eye board, that pretty much all of us, I would hope to God, can see, or hopefully can see very soon. That is the Notre Dame logo. This is not an ocular exam. It's college football. The other thing that I said is if they pass the eye test, most people do pass the eye test at 2 o'clock in the morning in a dimly lit bar where you've had a few tequilas. So I don't understand how Notre Dame is somehow the last girl in the bar that you take home at night, nor do I see how this is an ocular exam. They have
Dan, has
lost.
this happened to you very often? Because this sounds like this is personal experience, that this is trauma.
No, it's just good analogy. I've never been drunk, and I've never had a one-night stand. I have had an ocular exam. But when we look at the reality of life and what we're seeing here right now, Notre Dame almost beat Texas A&M. What did I say? Almost. Well, they only lost by one, Dan. They lost the game. So remember when Indiana was told if you lose to Ohio State by any score? This was a graphic on a major sports network last year. It said if Indiana loses to Ohio State, there's a 90 whatever % chance that they're going to make it to the college football playoff. It was promoting like, hey, if you lose, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how many points you lose by. Doesn't matter what happens in this game. You lose 90-9. Doesn't matter at all. Telling a team, first time I've ever seen this in 22 years of broadcasting, telling a team, we will promote you for losing. There's nothing wrong with you losing. You've beaten 11 unranked teams. You've done a whole lot of nothing. And now you're playing a good team. Whatever happens, we got your back. And they did get blown out by Ohio State, and the committee did have their back. So when I look at the college football playoff, and I look at what's going on with Notre Dame, you lost to Texas A&M. You lost to Miami. Those two losses are being treated as wins. You don't believe me? They're in the top 10. You don't believe me? They're ranked above Miami, the team that they lost to, that they have the same record as. You don't believe me? Let's dig a little bit deeper. USC is being treated like a good team. USC beat Iowa, who is a good team. USC also beat Michigan, who's done nothing. A win over Michigan should have no base in this thing if you treat these games like college basketball and you call them quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4 wins or losses. Michigan has no quad 1 wins. I don't know if they have many quad 2 wins. So any team beating Michigan should not be your claim to fame. It's not a quad 1 win to beat a Michigan. And Michigan has only beaten unranked teams. They lost to the only ranked team that they played, which was Oklahoma. They lost by double digits. USC beat Michigan. That win doesn't mean a whole lot to me because Michigan hasn't beaten anybody of merit. And when you look at USC, the rest of their thing, okay, they beat Iowa, which I'll call a quad 2 win, but USC lost to Illinois, who is the only top 10 ranked, and I'm using air quotes here because that was smoke and mirrors, and if they were not in the Big Ten or the SEC, they wouldn't be ranked that high. But beat 3 unranked teams to get to number 9 in the country, did not have the reason for being there. The same argument I made about Penn State. Illinois lost by 50 plus. I don't know anybody that's been ranked in the top 10 in recent history that's ever lost by 40, let alone 50 plus points. I don't know if it's happened in history, but I dare you to go back and check. So Michigan's not that good. USC gets credit for beating them. USC's not that good. Notre Dame gets credit for beating them. Notre Dame's only quality win this season is against Pittsburgh. Yeah. It's not USC, it's against Pittsburgh. Let's call Pittsburgh a quad 2, and let's call USC a hairline quad 2, quad 3, just by a hair. Maybe it's a low end 2, high end 3. So Notre Dame is in the top 10 in the country for beating a not great USC team, an okay Pitt team, and then losing to 2 teams that are by or in the top 10. So what does that truly mean? It means people like Notre Dame's name, they like Notre Dame's money, they like Notre Dame's pageantry, they like the fact that the fans travel, and they like that it's a universal logo like the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Yankees. The reality of it all is Notre Dame does not play in a conference. They do not have the challenge of a conference.
Which
They,
be forced to do, buddy,
yeah,
because I think that
they
it should be
should
like
be.
the culture in 2020. They made them join the ACC. They got into the playoff, but they should. The only way, that's the only way maybe Notre Dame, you twist their arm a little bit, is you force them to join a conference, have to play in a conference championship game to even be eligible for playoff consideration, whether it be bowl game or postseason college football playoff. But they're too afraid to do that. They don't want to bully Notre Dame around because Notre Dame, whether you like them or love them, hate them, whatever, it's like the Cowboys or New York Yankees, Duke basketball. They are the number one brand in college sports, even though they haven't won a national title in 37 years. There's a lot better teams out there, but Notre Dame has the history. They have the movies, the Rudy movies, the Four Horsemen, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they're going to pick Notre Dame every single time, let them do whatever they want, and they will look for ways to let them in the college football playoff. Now that it's expanded to 12 teams, they will always find a way. As long as they're decent and don't have too many losses. If they have 2 losses or less, they're getting in every single time. So they started off on two close losses to Miami and undefeated Texas A&M. They're decent. Those are pretty good teams. But if they were going to win out and they were going to play pretty much garbage schools, they were going to get in. And like you said, Pitt and USC, those are decent wins, but those aren't against juggernaut schools. The 2 best teams they played, they lost, and they haven't really beat anyone. They're going to get into the college football playoff. You knew that off the bat. All they have to do is win out, and they're going to. Unfortunately, I know you love Syracuse. On Senior Day at Notre Dame at home, they're going to crush Syracuse this Saturday, and then they go on the road and beat Stanford. They're going to destroy Stanford. Going to California, it's going to be late at night game, and at like 2 a.m. Those are going to be easy wins. But I don't think they're going to do anything in the college football playoff. Like if they face a real opponent in the college football playoff, they're going to lose by at least 2 touchdowns. They are overmatched, but they get the credit because they are Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But I also have an issue, even though they're more known for a basketball school, with Indiana. Who does Indiana beat? They beat Oregon this year, who's pretty good. But besides that, they don't beat anyone. And Indiana's like 11-0. Everyone's raving about it. They almost lost to Penn State once and for the guy tapping his toe at the back of the end zone a couple weeks ago. Indiana, to me, is a fake team as well. They are not a juggernaut. And against a real school, if they face like an Ohio State team, they would get blown off the field by at least 3 touchdowns. So I think Notre Dame is the bigger school and the bigger ridiculousness that they get in the playoff, no matter if they deserve it or not. But Indiana is also a fraud to me. They are not a legit school who's going to actually beat anyone in a college football playoff of note. So everyone raves the coach is great. I think he's doing a great job. That from being an all basketball school to what they were. Indiana used to be a punching bag in college football, win 2 games a year. They are not a legit football power, but yet everyone in the media is pushing that, and I don't buy that for 2 seconds.
No, and I agree with you. And I made that statement. I've made that claim, and I believe I got somewhere around 500 messages on just on just Facebook. I think 492 of them were negative, but again, it's from the fan base and people really not reading through what I'm saying because facts seem to scare people in today's America. But when you look at what's going on, and like I said, to my point of Notre Dame, they're treating them as if they won these games. They're treating them as if they beat Texas A&M. They're treating them as if they beat Miami. They don't have quad 1 wins. Those are your quad 1 wins. They have a quad 2 win over Pittsburgh, and like I said, they have like a lower end quad 2 win over USC. That's their claim to fame. Syracuse is 3-7. Stanford's 3-7. Okay, so these games that they're playing doesn't justify being in the top 10. It doesn't justify being in the top 11 or 12. I mean, I have them living in a world where I think, for me, as I'm releasing my rankings today, but to give you kind of just a look at it, I have them at 12 only because of other things that have happened, because Texas has lost, because I don't believe in Utah, because I think BYU they could beat, because Georgia Tech's good, but I think that, how good are they against top opponents, because they haven't been challenged as much. So I think, when it comes to Notre Dame, it's very clear that this is a simple bias, and it's the same bias that the Big Ten gets, which is why, I think Notre Dame should just go ahead and join the Big Ten since they're treated as such. And, I like the fact that you said what you said about Indiana, and you said it before I could say it, because to me, I went out there and I did my research, Ross. Now, I had my thoughts on Indiana and what they did and did not do this season.
Well, buddy, that I think the media is afraid to push back on it because they were considered this little engine that could, a nice Cinderella story. They like the Coach Signetti and everything, and it's great. I give them credit. But they are not an elite program. But everyone, if you attack Indiana in any way that they're not a marquee program, they think you're a despicable person, and they try to throw you down the rabbit hole saying you don't know anything about college sports. They just aren't, and people don't want to say it, and you get tons of blowback. If you said on ESPN, they probably throw you right off the camera and not let you be on the program anymore. So I just think you have to have the courage to say it. And then the last thing before you continue with Notre Dame, I think it definitely helps that they lost their first 2 games of the year close and very early in the season, so people pretty much forget about it because it happened like 3 months ago, and now they just rattle off a bunch of wins against mediocre teams, and they make it seem like they're a marquee program. It helps that it was early on in the season. It helps that they're Notre Dame, and it helps that the college football will always be too scared to force them to join a conference, so they get to pocket all the money from NBC and Peacock and all that stuff and all these different. And they, as you said, they travel well. They'll fill up the stadium in any bowl game, any playoff game.
Yeah,
but it's crazy that they get that advantage. So I just see it in both areas that Notre Dame gets this bias that they can do whatever they want and still get in the playoffs. And Indiana, because they like the story of Indiana as this up-and-coming program that used to be just college basketball and Bobby Knight, and now they're pretty good at college football, that they've now made them out to be the next Ohio State or what Michigan used to be. They're not. And then the last thing with Michigan, the only hope Michigan's beat up on a bunch of mediocre and crappy schools, is that they can somehow continue their dominance against Ohio State, which they should have lost to them last year. Somehow Ohio State got upset by Michigan, but then went on that run to win the national title. Can Michigan do that again this year? I don't think that would happen, but that really be Michigan's only claim to fame if they could somehow beat their arch rival Ohio State again, and then they're like, they'll probably sneak into the college football playoff, whether they deserve it or not. But I would think that Ohio State at some point needs to be able to show that they can beat Michigan again and go back to the dominance they used to have before Jim Harbaugh and Michigan used to beat them up.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, people not wanting to push back from narratives, right? These narratives that are created by certain networks, and these narratives that are positioned, they're put out there, and whether they're right or wrong, they're constantly just spoken about. And so what I do in repetition is I spit facts. That's my repetition. My repetition is not a narrative, it's a fact. When people say, oh, you don't like the Big Ten, never said that. Well, you don't like Indiana, never said that. Well, you don't like Notre Dame, never said that. I'm simply speaking about what I'm seeing. I'm speaking on things that are truthful. I'm speaking on things that are real. Because what else did I say this year? I said Missouri's not a good team. Why the heck are they ranked so high? Why are they ranked at all in the SEC? Missouri hasn't been a good team. They haven't really beaten anybody. So I've questioned Missouri. I've questioned the validity of Miami. I've questioned why Tennessee is a 3-loss team that's ranked when I think SMU should be ranked in this thing. I also have questioned why there's other teams that haven't been ranked, like a North Texas or a Tulane who just got ranked. I'm going to give you some facts here, Ross, because like I said, people don't like them. I made a statement about Indiana when they were 8-0. And now I've gone back and I did. So I made a statement about Indiana, said they're not the number 1, not the number 2 team. Now, people didn't bother to ask me where I had them. I had them at 3 or 4. So they're fighting with me about, you're a horrible, terrible person. You're a terrible broadcaster. You should go jump off a cliff.
It's very respectable. You're not saying they're garbage. I don't think Indiana's garbage. I think they're a pretty good team, and it's a great story. They've come from nothing. The Penn State, I've been a big Penn State fan for a number of years. And I also work at the school covering sports, so I admit that I love Penn State. Yeah. But hard to be unbiased, but I'll be as truthful as possible. Penn State's had a pretty bad year at college football, and it's been a train wreck. James Franklin was the Virginia Tech head coach, and that's the win out just to try and make a bowl game. But Indiana used to be like a punching bag, an easy victory, almost a bye week for Penn State just a few years ago. They used to destroy Indiana. So what Indiana has come from being a laughingstock, one of the worst teams in Big Ten, kind of what Rutgers used to be, and Rutgers got a little bit better, and to now what they've become one of the powerhouses of the Big Ten, you got to give them a ton of credit and give Coach Signetti a ton of credit. Penn State would love to steal him away and become their new head coach, but they gave him a massive contract extension for like $11 million a year. all power to them. But all we're just saying is they aren't the top 2 school. They might be. I think they're a top 10 school right now, but I don't think they're number 2. I probably wouldn't even put them at number 5. I think they're in the top 10 of the best teams in college football, and I think that's very respectable. But I think against the top 2, top 3, 4, 5 teams, they probably will get blown out in those games, and people don't want to hear that.
No, and I agree with you. And looking at the research of it, when I made my statement about Indiana not being a top 1 or top 2 team, I decided to dig a little bit deeper beyond what my research had already shown me, or what I had taken away. So Indiana, when they were 8-0, 5-0 in the Big Ten this season, these are their wins. This is what they have. So at the time, once again, this was 8 games in. So at the time, Old Dominion, they beat 27-14. Old Dominion 5-3, 2-2 in the Sun Belt. Kennesaw State 56-9. They win that game. Kennesaw State 5-2, 3-0 in Conference USA. Indiana State, an FCS team, they beat 73-0. 2-6, 0-4 in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. Those are their unranked opponents, including one FCS opponent. None of them, like I said, ranked in the top 25. One of them not even in the FBS. Illinois ranked 9th in the country after beating 3 unranked teams. They beat them 63-10. And at the time, Illinois 5-3, 2-3. We're talking about 8 games into the season. Then they beat Iowa on the road by 5, and Iowa 6-2, 4-1 in the Big Ten. They beat Oregon, who was ranked 3rd in the country at the time, 30-20, 7-1.
Right. Really, that's their only signature win, that they beat Oregon.
So 7-1, 4-1 in the Big Ten. I give them credit for at Oregon, at Iowa. Then they blew out Michigan State, who at the time 3-5, 0-5 in the Big Ten at the time of 5 weeks into the season. UCLA, who fired their coach mid-season, they blew them out. UCLA 3-5, 3-2 at the time. And then they had 4 remaining games at Maryland, at Penn State, Wisconsin, and at Purdue. Those teams had records of 4-3, 3-4, 2-6, and 2-6. And in the conference, Maryland 1-3 at the time, Penn State 0-4, Wisconsin 0-5, Purdue 0-5. So their out-of-conference opponents at the time had an overall record of 12-11, barely above 500, and 5-6 within their conference play below 500. In conference, their Big Ten opponents 35-35 overall, just at 500, and 14-29 in conference play, including their last 4 games being against teams that had a combined record of 1-17 in the Big Ten. So when you really break it down, Indiana's schedule has been against a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of easy, a whole lot of whatever. And to the people that say to me, Dan, but we beat the teams in front of us. Dan, but we're better than Alabama because Alabama lost to Florida State. No. Dan. And my response to you is...
The thing about this, let's be honest, if they went on the field and Alabama had time to prepare and they're ready to go, I don't see how there's any way Alabama doesn't beat them by at least 2 touchdowns. Right. And I'm not a big Alabama fan. I respected Nick Saban. Their new coaches had some ups and downs. But Alabama and most of the SEC schools, and they get a lot of biased, unfair treatment that they get always like, the SEC is a powerhouse no matter what. You said Tennessee, 3 losses. They're still respected and get ranked high. SEC gets too much preferential treatment because they're considered the big boys. So it's SEC and Big Ten are the 2 marquee conferences. But let's be honest. If Alabama takes on Indiana, they are going to smoke Indiana in a college football game. Yeah. So that's the thing. They haven't beaten anyone besides Oregon. Iowa's a decent team. That's a decent win. Oregon's a very good team. That's a good win. Yeah. Besides that, they didn't have to play Ohio State this year like last year. As you said, Ohio State last year, when Indiana was going on a run, being undefeated late in the season, they wiped the floor with them. And Indiana got smoked that game. So how is it you're going to tell me with a straight face Indiana goes against one of the marquee schools that they would not get blown out? I don't like Ohio State either. They go face Ohio State, they would get blown out by Ohio State Buckeyes. They face any of the marquee, at least top 3 to 5 schools, they probably get blown out in those games. And most of the SEC schools, even the ones who've been up and down, struggling, Georgia's been up and down, there's schools that have had some losses here or there. They're facing much better competition week after week, and they're in tough conferences. They would crush Indiana in a college football playoff game. And anyone who doesn't see that, you're going to see it soon, because when they're going to get in the playoff, they're going to be at one of the top seeds. Watch what happens, because and maybe I'm totally wrong about this, I don't see Indiana making any deep run unless they're facing a mediocre college football team in the playoff. they face any of the big boys, they're going to get blown out by at least 2 touchdowns, and they will have a quick exit in the college football playoffs this year.
Yeah, and the thing is, when they say, like I was saying, when they say Dan, but wait, Dan.
But I also believe the same thing with Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame will have a quick exit. If they face any of the big boys, Notre Dame will get knocked out.
And what they'll probably do is they'll have them play each other like they did last year so that one of them can make it. But the reality of it all is but Dan, they're undefeated. But Dan, they don't have a loss. Georgia's only loss is to Alabama. Okay? Georgia beat Ole Miss. Georgia beat Texas. Georgia beat Texas by blowing them out. Ohio State beat Texas by 1 touchdown in a low-scoring 14-7 game. Georgia beat Tennessee. Georgia beat a Florida team that also beat Texas. So Georgia has the one quality win that Ohio State has against a common opponent, which is Texas. Ohio State doesn't have any more quality wins besides that. So you got to win over Texas. They got to win over Texas. They beat Texas by 7. You beat Texas by 25. Plus you beat Florida. Plus you beat Ole Miss. Plus you beat Tennessee. So let's call it what we call it. The reality of it all is, if you say to me, you got to put the teams at the top that are undefeated. Why was UCF not in the college football playoff a few years ago? Why was Memphis the quickest team to 6-0 this year? Why were they not even ranked in the top 25 until they went 6-0? And where were they ranked when they were 6-0? 22? So the reality of it all to me is that you make cases for schools and conferences, not you, but people make cases for schools and conferences.
That's what we're talking about.
It fits the narrative. You have to fit the narrative that the Big Ten is good, when the reality of the fact is the Big Ten has 18 institutions, but only 4 of them have been any type of competition this year when you talk about Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, and Iowa. But when you look at the SEC, here's the competition, and this is where I'm going to argue with people about the ACC. They say, oh, the ACC is... Okay, Florida State didn't have a good year, but they beat Alabama. Clemson hasn't had a great year, but they've come up late, and they have an opportunity to go bowling this season, and they're 5-5 right now, so they got a shot to do it, and they're right in the middle of the ACC. They're not at the bottom of the ACC. So there's something to be said about that. But they say, well, the ACC is not good because Clemson's not good. Well, the ACC is not good because Florida State's not good. Okay? But
how about the Panthers, who have been pretty good this year?
But that's my argument, Ross, is that they have so many teams. They have Georgia Tech, they have Virginia, they have Pitt, they have SMU, they have Miami, they have Duke, they have Louisville, they have Wake Forest, that have all been good this year. And stop, folks, treating Wake Forest as a bad loss when a team loses to them. They're 7-3, not 3-7, because they're treating them as the opposite. Again, the narrative. The American that doesn't get respect. They have Navy, Tulane, North Texas, East Carolina, South Florida, Memphis, that have all been viable this year. Temple has gotten better this year. Temple's about to be a bowl team. UTSA, that people have written off, they're about to be a bowl team. Florida Atlantic, under a new head coach, they can have the opportunity of being a bowl team. The Rice Owls, who have a great history playing the top teams in the country, they have an opportunity of being a bowl team. Memphis is already a bowl team. Army is on the precipice of being a bowl team. South Florida's a bowl team. East Carolina's a bowl team. They came out of the basement of the American. North Texas is 9-1. They came out of the basement of the American. They're a bowl team. Tulane's a bowl team. Navy's a bowl team. So what are we really talking about here except for narratives? Because the American doesn't have one team, doesn't have 2 teams, doesn't have 3 teams like the Big Ten, where you got 15 teams sitting there watching and 3 teams actually playing some pretty good football. In the American, you have a plethora of teams. In the ACC, you have a plethora of teams. In the SEC, you have the likes of Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, that have all been strong. Tennessee hasn't had a bad year. LSU's done some good things. Missouri has done some good things. Well, Missouri's the team that I can't go back on what I said here. Missouri needs to show me more, but Missouri is 7-3, and they're going to go bowling this year.
You have to run the gauntlet to get through the SEC, get through some of these marquee conferences.
Yeah.
There's week after week, you're facing really good programs and it's throughout. It's the top teams, but even the middle of the pack teams are pretty good. Like LSU, and I was not a big fan of Brian Kelly. He should have stayed at Notre Dame. Great for Marcus Freeman because he's done a great job picking up that program and doing great things with them. But Brian Kelly left to go to LSU, pretend he was from the South and everything, and put on like a fake Southern accent and all that. And you knew he was going to get fired within a few years. But his overall record at LSU was actually pretty good. It's just he didn't beat many big-time schools, not many signature wins, and you were expected to win national titles in the SEC. So he had like a pretty good win-loss record, but in the end, they're like, where's your national titles? Where's your college football playoff appearances? And if you don't get that in the SEC, you're going to get fired in 3 or 4 years. Where if you have pretty good seasons at some of these other schools, like, let's be honest, if Cignetti continues to do well at Indiana, being up on these Mickey Mouse schools, he could stay there for the rest of his career and go be a college football Hall of Fame coach. He'll be lauded as one of the greatest coaches of all time, beating almost nobody. But if you do that in the SEC and don't make the college football playoffs, don't win a national title, they will fire you within 3 or 4 years. It's not the same. And even the ACC is getting tougher because you saw last year, in year one, Fran Brown for your Syracuse Orange had a great season, had a heck of a run. This year they have struggled. They have lost pretty bad to a lot of schools, and they look like they've taken a step back. I don't know how. I assume that, and it also hurts they lost their quarterback for the season. They should get him back next year, and Jelly. That definitely has hurt their chances. If he was healthy, they'd probably be better. But Fran Brown, I don't think he forgot to recruit. I don't think he forgot to coach overnight when he had a good year in year one as the head coach coming from Georgia. I think that it's just a tough conference. They lost their quarterback, and it's not easy to win in college football. So you got to give credit for what Indiana's doing. But as you would see just locally when you cover Syracuse, you can take a step back right away just because it's so many teams you have to go up against week after week. And in Syracuse's case, unfortunately, they lost their quarterback when they were struggling even with him, and they fell off the deep end. So I would hope next year they're back on top as a solid, formidable ACC school. But again, if they prove me wrong, great, and I'll shut my mouth. I'll be the first to eat crow and admit it. If Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame go on another run, they beat, that's the thing. They were able to, you said last year it was Indiana versus Notre Dame in the first round of the college football playoff. So they ensured that at least one of them was going to move on. And Notre Dame went on a run, but they beat up on some bad schools even in the playoff. I'll be honest with Penn State. They beat up the 2 teams that they beat in the college football playoff weren't that great last year. They beat SMU and Boise State with Gentry, the star running back. They were good teams, but they weren't great teams. When Penn State had to beat a better team like Notre Dame, or if they would have gotten to the championship game against Ohio State, they weren't going to do as well. So some of these teams, it's almost like the committee wants to give them a leg up, face some weaker opponents so they can even in the playoff justify maybe Indiana they'll do that with. They'll let them face a weaker opponent so they can get through 1 or 2 rounds and say, look, they won some college football playoff games. They beat some elite opponents. They're really good. When they just beat up on mediocre teams that got in, and then against the big boys, they're going to get pounded. So if Indiana or Notre Dame, they get it done this year in the college football playoff, they'll have a chance to prove me wrong and shut my mouth up. Indiana's going to even have to try to do that in a Big Ten championship game. Can they beat a big boy school? So until they do that, until they prove otherwise, I don't see the proof that they're beating marquee opponents. I think they're beating mediocre to garbage programs, and they're getting away with it saying, oh, look, they've rattled off 10 straight wins in a row. But against who? I like what you do, buddy. You are very fact-based, and you dissect who are they beating week after week. Give them credit for beating the schedule that's in front of them, but they are not facing the cream of the crop. And until they do, and they win on a consistent basis week after week, you cannot say that they're one of the best teams in college football yet. If they do, then they will finally be in the plethora of an Alabama, of an Ohio State, and they will get their credit, and they will get their praise. Until then, they got to prove us wrong. And then, hey, I'll go streaking like I'll be the first. We're going streaking. Will Ferrell from Old School style. I'll go streaking throughout Dallas, Pennsylvania if you want. If you can prove me otherwise, and I will get that done. We'll put a camera crew. We'll scare all the people in this area. But until that happens, it's not happening. My clothes are staying on, and that's best for everyone in the visual world to have to see me.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, I mean, and again, the points that you're making, the points we're making here this morning, and I've said it. And when Brendan was on the show, he said this last year when Ohio State won, and I was really happy for Ohio State. And the some people, the notion of the miscommunication of not listening, because again, people see red when you don't agree with them blindly. But I said the Big Ten is ballooned in the polls. They are given precedence. They are treated as if they've done something when they haven't. And it happens a lot within the conference. It happens with Michigan. It happens now with Indiana. It happens with Ohio State. It happens with Oregon. And it happened with Illinois. And when you look at it's happening with USC, it's happening with Michigan. There's still people talking about Michigan's chances of making the college football playoff, which is hilarious. They beat Purdue barely.
Dave Portnoy's doing that because he's a Michigan alum, very proud. He's one of the boosters. He apparently helped raise money to get Underwood, their young quarterback, to come to Michigan. He's now doing games like the pregame show on a big new kickoff on Fox. He's, of course, a big Michigan homer. He is very much saying that if they win out, they're going to the college football playoff, and he's convinced they're going to beat up on Ohio State year after year because he's like, "Oh, we're their big brother. They're just our little step sibling. We'll destroy them." I'm like, Ohio State at some point is going to wake up after they beat all these other good teams, and they're going to beat Michigan again. But until they're saying because since Urban Meyer left and Jim Harbaugh, and then now their new coach, including last year, Michigan wasn't good, found a way to beat Ohio State, and then Ohio State won the title. But he's convinced that, Michigan is going to do it. Michigan barely beat Northwestern at Wrigley Field at the Cubs baseball stadium last Saturday. Barely beat them. So Michigan is not really beating good teams, and I still convinced that anything can happen in a rivalry game. But Ohio State, if they have, they have their heads screwed on right, they'll be amped up for that game, and they're going to shut up all the doubters and beat up Michigan because Ryan Day is probably sick and tired, even though he won that national title last year, them saying you can't beat Michigan. He's going to want to shut them up, and he's going to want to beat them big time. He has that circled on his calendar, whether he likes to admit it or not. He's not going to just want to beat them. He's going to want to destroy the Michigan Wolverines this year. So that's and then you mentioned Illinois. Illinois is another school that early in the year was ranked high. They don't beat anyone. So like Illinois, I think is worse off. Indiana at least has beat schools once in a while. They beat mediocre teams. Indiana, I have a lot more respect for as a college football powerhouse than Illinois. Illinois doesn't beat anyone. They only beat crappy schools, and somehow they were ranked in the top 10 when they played Indiana early in the season. It's nuts. And then Penn State, as much as I want to give credit to Penn State when they do well, they beat your number 2 ranked team in the country, had all these return players, Drew Aller, quarterback, the 2-star running backs. Everyone's like, they're going to the national title. They beat 3 Mickey Mouse schools, including Villanova, who's good at basketball, but not college football in Division I football. They beat 3 Mickey Mouse schools and then lost a heartbreaker in the whiteout game at home at the end of September to Oregon in double overtime. That was a tough loss, but it's respectable. They were 3-1 at that point. But then, since then, that's what got James Franklin fired. They went on the road to UCLA, which is a garbage school for football in the last few years, who had fired their coach. They lost to UCLA. Then they lost to Northwestern, which got him fired after 3 straight losses. I thought they were going to let Franklin stay to at least the rest of the season. They were willing to pull the plug right then and there after 3 straight losses. Then they lost to Iowa. Then they lost to Ohio State after they kept it close in the first half, got blown out in the second half. And then they almost beat Indiana. That was a thriller a couple weeks ago. Finally, at least Penn State was able to beat Michigan State, who also stinks. They both came to that game, I think 3-6 last week. But Penn State is another one that was expected big things of. Everyone's like, they're going to get it done this year. But they only beat Mickey Mouse schools this year. And as much as Penn State homers don't want to admit it, when they had to face real competition, they got beat up. And then when they faced even bad schools, they stopped winning. I don't even know what happened. Because even before Drew Aller got hurt, even after losing to Oregon, they went out. Penn State would have been like Notre Dame. They would have made the college football playoff. If they would have won out or lost to maybe Ohio State, lost 2 games, Penn State still would have gone in the playoff every year because they come to the Big Ten. And that's what James Franklin was doing, but they kept saying, he doesn't win the big one.
They just
football semifinal last year, almost beat Notre Dame, almost got to the national championship game last year. He has this losing streak, gets fired. Now he's going to Virginia Tech as coach, James Franklin. But he couldn't beat the big boys on a consistent basis, couldn't beat Michigan, couldn't beat Ohio State on a consistent basis. So it cost him his job. And then Penn State, who they have beat this year, are Mickey Mouse schools. But so they would have been frauds this year if they would have made a deep run because they didn't beat anyone, even when people thought they were going to be big, Penn State, and they fell on their faces. Illinois doesn't beat anyone. Indiana doesn't beat anyone. So it's like you got to just look at their resume of who they're beating. Notre Dame doesn't really beat anyone. Like, they're not facing legit schools like that are marquee programs. Again, as you said, USC, beating USC is a nice win. Beating Pittsburgh on the road is a nice win. But they're not powerhouse schools that they're beating. And Notre Dame prides itself on pretending they're a powerhouse school in college football. They were about 30 years ago. When they face a big school now, they usually get blown out in a bowl game, in a college football playoff game. We've seen what happens. Yeah. We see when they had to face like Alabama in a national title game. Back when Monteteo had him and his fake girlfriend go to the game. They got blown out. Like, they don't. When they face a marquee school, they faced Clemson in the playoffs a few years ago. They get blown out. They cannot measure up against the big boys, and until otherwise, that's the case, and they don't want to admit it, and they will attack you if you bring up their resume that they're not facing the cream of the crop.
Well, and great points there. And talking about when they had to join a conference during COVID, when Notre Dame joined the ACC, Notre Dame was the second school, and they made it to the ACC championship game, and they got blown out by Clemson. And the committee, when they were asked about this, they said, well, what's your thoughts on Clemson? They're like, well, their win earlier in the season against about Notre Dame. They said, well, the win earlier in the season against Clemson, that means a lot. That holds a lot of weight. And I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on. Go back. They beat Clemson without Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
They beat Clemson without Trevor Lawrence in overtime at home. So
I think it was double.
Yeah, so it was double over. So without Trevor Lawrence, so you beat Clemson, and it takes you double overtime against DJ Uiagalelei, who did not pan out. So it takes you double overtime against their backup quarterback at home in your place to win. But when Trevor's healthy and Trevor plays you in the championship game, you get blown out. And the response by the committee is, well, they still have a quality win over Clemson, completely overlooking what happened most recently when Clemson actually had their quarterback. So you're going to let them in because they beat Clemson, but then they lost to Clemson. And they beat Clemson's backup quarterback in double overtime, but they lost to Clemson's actual quarterback. So, again, the committee not making any sense. Instead of just saying, we like Notre Dame, we like their money, we like their fan base, we like how they travel, so that's who we're going to go with. It doesn't make logical sense. Let's take a look at Michigan here for a second, shall we? These are Michigan's wins this year. To just stop the conversation about Michigan being a good team. This is Michigan this year. We're going to go in order.
Do they have any good wins? I don't think they have.
No, they have none. New Mexico, unranked, not a quad 1 or quad 2 win. Okay, they beat them. They lost to Oklahoma, the only ranked team they've played this year. The only ranked team they've played this year. So not only did they lose...
Buddy, for people who want to attack you, we're not just attacking Indiana and Notre Dame. You're going after a bunch of different schools.
I'm talking about the Big Ten bias. I'm talking about the BTB, baby. The Big Ten bias. It's something that I brought up pre-COVID, and I said, if you don't believe me, if you do not believe me, go to 2020, go to the COVID season. When the Big Ten said we're not going to play football because we care about the health and safety of the blah, blah, BS, and when they saw the ACC and the SEC making money, they decided with the Pac-12 to start playing. And when they got in and started playing, before they even played a game, we were 6 weeks into the season. We were 6 weeks in. They ranked Ohio State, Penn State, and I believe Michigan in the top 25, 6 weeks into the season with a record of 0-0, and they put Michigan up 4 spots. Michigan rose 4 spots with a record of 0-0, and Ohio State was a top 10 team halfway into the season. And so I say to people all the time, if you don't believe in the Big Ten bias, just look at 2020. Just go to 2020. It is the most egregious party foul. It is the easiest example that I have, and if you think that it went away, then I don't know what we're talking about here. It's like ridiculous to me. But let's have the conversation about Michigan. They beat New Mexico, who's unranked. They've only played one ranked team. So not only did they lose to Oklahoma, and not only did they lose by double digits, but that's the only ranked team that they've played. So you lost to the ranked team you played, but you've only played one ranked team. How can you consider a team to have a strong season when they've played one quality opponent? They beat Central Michigan, unranked. At Nebraska, unranked. Wisconsin, unranked. They lost to an unranked USC. They beat unranked Washington. They beat unranked Michigan State. They beat unranked Purdue. They beat unranked Northwestern. And to what Ross said, their last 2 wins, Michigan, their last 2 wins are against teams that have a combined record in the Big Ten of 3-12. They beat a Purdue
that's like
team.
The New York Jets, right there. That's the quality of opponents they were
facing. They beat a Purdue team that is 0-8 in the Big Ten, 2-9 overall, and they barely beat them. They beat them by 5 points, 21-16 at home in Michigan. And then as Roska, they went on the road, faced off against Northwestern, and beat Northwestern by 2 points, with Northwestern having a record of 3-4, 5-5 toward the middle to bottom end of the Big Ten. So
it was on a last-second field goal. They almost lost that game at Wrigley. It's great they played at the Cubs Wrigley Field in a baseball stadium. They almost lost that game to a Northwestern team that stinks.
Right.
That Penn State got embarrassed and lost to them by like a point earlier in the year. Like, no one in the Big Ten who's anybody should be losing to Northwestern. Never mind make the game close. They should have blown them off the field. Yeah. Instead, they barely survived that game. And now that Dave Portnoy, the big mouth, who I love his Barstool Pizza reviews. We watch it every night, my wife and I. He then's like, oh, yeah, we're going to win out and go to the college football playoff. First of all, you're not going to win out because I think Ohio State's going to destroy you. And you've beaten nobody. But he's like, oh, we've earned it. We're going to win out and we're going to go to the college football playoff. As you showed, they have not earned it. They've nobody. They've beaten garbage teams. And for him to think that they've earned it, he's a complete homer. You can't take anything he says seriously about college football.
Right, and when you look at it and you say Tulane has better wins, Memphis has better wins, East Carolina has better wins, South Florida has better wins, all in the American Conference. And Illinois, okay, let's look at Illinois. Illinois beat unranked Western Illinois, beat unranked Duke at Duke, beat unranked Western Michigan, got blown out by 53 points at ranked Indiana, beat USC by 2 points, which was an okay win for Illinois. Then they beat Purdue, who's unranked, on the road. They got blown out by number 1 Ohio State. They got blown out by unranked Washington at Washington. And then they beat a Rutgers team who's now 2-5 in the Big Ten, 5-5 overall, and beat a Maryland team who is 1-6 in the Big Ten, 4-6 overall. Illinois has done absolutely, positively nothing. You know, they've talked about Washington. They've talked about Iowa. Iowa's been okay. Oregon's been pretty good. Ohio State's been good. Indiana's been good. But again, this is what we're talking about here. The excuses being made for the Big Ten. You make your schedule in advance. So you can't be punished for how a team is when you made the schedule 5-10 years ago. When you play Nevada, FIU, and Villanova, Penn State, yeah, you can be blamed for that because you know those teams weren't going to be ranked. You know those teams weren't going to be high. So I don't know what the conversation is on any of that. So
those are 5 weeks toward the season. Right. They're free, easy games to win. And for the other school, they usually are willing to take it because they get lots of money. They sometimes get paid like $10, $13 million.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Get destroyed. But then you saw what happened last year. Notre Dame still made the college football playoff. Northern Illinois got paid, I think it was like $13 million. They had an inspirational coach to show up to the Notre Dame home opener, and they embarrassed Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame, and Notre Dame still found a way to win out and go to the college football playoff because they don't play the conference. But Northern Illinois is like a lot of these other schools that even like Penn State, some of these other marquee schools face. They'll say, come on over. We'll give you $10 million. Just show up and get your butt kicked, and it'll be an easy win for us. You'll get money. You'll get put on national TV, good exposure for recruiting, and NIL money. And what happened, it was the funniest thing ever, Northern Illinois found a way to beat them. So, you know, any given Sunday, any given Saturday, college football, anything can happen. But still, there was no punishment because Notre Dame still was able to win out and go to the college football playoff, beating mediocre teams. So that's the only fun thing is once in a while, you'll get situations where it'll be a massive upset. What was it, a few years back? Appalachian State knocked off Michigan Wolverines. That was a big upset no one thought was going to happen. It's very rare, but it is kind of funny when the big powerhouse schools are like, oh, yeah, we have an easy cupcake game that we're going to win, and all we have to do is pay the money. We get these easy wins. And sometimes the little edge that could, David versus Goliath, David punches back and knocks the Goliath down. So that's the only fun part. But still, these powerhouses in the marquee conferences, or Notre Dame, who doesn't have to join a conference, they don't ever suffer the consequences, even when David knocks off Goliath, because they still are like, there's an easy path now with a 12-team playoff. They still get in either way. So that's the thing that's not fair, that no matter what they do, unless they totally free fall like Penn State, where they free fall and lost a bunch of games this year, and even then, if they win out against a bad Nebraska team at home this week at Penn State and on the road against Rutgers the last week of the season, Penn State, as bad as they are, can finish 6-6 and make a bowl game. And they'll probably go to like Yankee Stadium, the Pinstripe Bowl, which they've done before because they have a large fan base in the Northeast and everything on the East Coast. So It's just ridiculous that they get these advantages, and I don't get when are we going to get to the point where you have to have a legit schedule? I'm like, everyone should have to. You face whoever's in your conference. That's great, but then make these schools have to stop playing these Division One AA schools and make them face real competition out of conference to earn their spot. Because otherwise, else they're beating Mickey Mouse schools and they're getting credit for it. As Penn State, James Franklin, he made his whole career mostly on that. He beat a couple of decent schools, but against ranked opponents, he had a horrible record. I think he was like 4-21 against top opponents. Only beat Ohio State once, beat Michigan once or twice. But most of his 12 years at Penn State was beating mediocre teams in the Big Ten. And then out of conference, he was beating Villanovas and Nevadas and Idahos, who are horrible non-conference schools that you could destroy even if you were blindfolded and you had your third-string quarterback playing, or me and you who took the field. We could beat those schools. So there has to be an incentive to finally schedule harder. And I respect the schools that are willing to, at least even out of conference, they're like, screw it, whether, we'll probably still get the playoff anyway, but we want to face the big boys in non-conference to get us ready for the playoffs. Because a lot of these schools, they don't do it, they don't take the risk, and they just want to have undefeated 12-0 seasons like Indiana and not worry about how poor the competition they be.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing that, again, if you're going to make an argument for one team and the same argument can be made for another team, you have to be consistent. If you're going to make an argument against a team and the same argument can be made against another team, you have to be consistent. Saying that Indiana and Ohio State are undefeated when they really haven't played much of anybody is not what you would say about Memphis. It's not what you would say about UCF. It's not what you would say about Coastal Carolina. It's not what you'd say about James Madison. And the argument would be, well, Dan, they play unranked teams. And I say, okay, well, so is the Big Ten. Well, Dan, the unranked teams in the Big Ten are better than unranked teams in the American. Michigan State's 0-7 in the Big Ten. That's the only Penn State Big Ten win that they have this year. Penn State's wins are over Nevada, whatever, FIU, whatever, Villanova, FCS opponent, and a horrible Michigan State Spartans team. So, I mean, what are we writing home about? The reality of it all...
That's what you just said. Like, they're like, oh, even the mediocre or bad Big Ten schools, they're better than these non-conference schools, these small, like, mid-major schools, they'd say in college basketball. Are we sure that they're better? Because I think some of this weaker competition, especially at the bottom or even middle of the Big Ten conference, is not necessarily better than these other schools. And definitely the big schools like a Memphis or Navy or any of these schools from smaller conferences, I think would wipe the floor with a lot of these Big Ten schools.
They're talking about, like, Purdue would be undefeated in the big, like, is that what we're saying? That Purdue would be undefeated in the American? Purdue would be undefeated in the ACC? Like, I mean, is that what people are trying to insinuate? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous.
So, I mean, the reality of it all, again, folks, go back and look at my history. I've never said I don't respect the Big Ten. Yeah. I've never said that I don't think they have good teams. I never said Ohio State was a bad team. I never said Indiana was a bad team. I didn't say Michigan was a bad team this year. All I'm talking about is competition, ballooned rankings, and very clear bias that exists. The best 12 teams are supposed to go into the college football playoff. And when you put in these teams, when you put these situations with the Big Ten, I mean, let's be real about something. Again, Indiana, 2 quality wins. Quad 2 Iowa, Quad 1 Oregon. Ohio State, 1 quality win. Quad 1 Texas. USC, Quad 2 win Iowa. I mean, that's what you give them. Oregon doesn't even have that much to write home about. When you look at Oregon, their one loss this season is to Indiana, and their quality win is over Iowa. So you look at USC and Oregon, their quality win was over Iowa. Indiana, one of their quality wins is over Iowa. So thank goodness for Iowa, or else Oregon wouldn't have a quality win. USC wouldn't have a quality win.
I'll put back with Oregon, and they ended up being a horrible team. Is at the time, even though they had only beat Mickey Mouse schools, they didn't deserve that ranking. And a lot of it was because last year they brought all those star players back. They did go on the road in the whiteout in a tough environment where there's 110,000 screaming Penn State fans, and they went into Happy Valley and beat them in double overtime, Penn State. And now that does not look like a good win. I'll be the first to admit. But at the time, we'll give a little bit of credit for Oregon because they beat a school that was supposed to be a marquee school against Penn State, and that was supposed to be a signature win in the Big Ten Conference, go all the way from the West Coast, Oregon, all the way to the East Coast, at night in a primetime game in a whiteout, which is very hard to win in a whiteout at Penn State in that kind of atmosphere. So I'll give Dan Lannon and Oregon that credit that they did go on the road and they were able to beat Penn State in the whiteout when Penn State was supposed to be good. Once Penn State free fall, they didn't beat Penn State when they were having a horrible season like a month later, right, or a few weeks later. But they beat them when they were supposed to be the marquee undefeated team on the road at Penn State. So that's the only pushback I'll have. But it turned out not to be a quality opponent. But at the time, it was considered an elite win.
Right, and I think with college basketball, right, you're at the mercy of how the team you played finished, not how the team you played was at the time. Because again, because of the rankings really supporting the Big Ten and Notre Dame and the SEC, you have to be able to back it up. Illinois didn't back it up. So when Indiana fans tell me you can't take away our top 10 win over Illinois, yeah, I can. Because Illinois is not a good team. Just like I can say, like you said, Penn State at the time, it was a really good win. It was a marquee win for Oregon, but you're at the mercy of how that team performs. So that quad 1 win over Penn State is now a quad 3 win over Penn State. And so,
impressive, yeah.
Right. So it lowers down, it falls down, and it falls flat. I love how people are writing these things right now, that Alabama is on the border of not making it to the college football playoff. Let me tell you what Alabama's done this year, okay? Notre Dame has 2 losses, and I don't hear anybody talking about how they're not making the college football playoff.
Alabama would do damage. If Alabama gets to this college football playoff, they will do damage in it. They're still a dangerous team.
But let's have the conversation. Let's have the conversation about Notre Dame and Alabama. Because they're saying Notre Dame should be in this thing. Notre Dame's a lock. Notre Dame's going to make it. They don't play in a conference. They can't have a conference championship. They
would crush Notre Dame in any game. I'll be honest. Alabama would crush.
So let's have the conversation. 2 best opponents Notre Dame played this year. They lost to both. They lost to Miami. They lost to Texas A&M. Well, they only lost, but they lost the game. They lost the game. They lost both games.
Sound like Rocky Balboa there.
Yeah. They lost both of the games. But, I mean, they did. I mean, they lost my Tulsa King. By the way, Tulsa's got 2 wins over Power 4 schools this year.
By the way, that show is awesome. Watch Paramount Plus. The season finale is this Sunday. Samuel L. Jackson is in the last 2 episodes. So, and he's going to be in the Nola King, a spinoff show against. It's a great show. So check that out on Sunday. Tulsa King, highly recommend, especially if you're a big Sly Stallone fan.
Yeah. So I mean, Miami. They lost to Miami. They lost to Texas A&M. You want to talk about the Notre Dame bias? If you don't believe me, Miami and Notre Dame have the same record. Miami beat them. Miami's ranked lower than them in the college football playoff polls.
Shouldn't it matter that you beat them head-to-head? It doesn't matter. It's the first week of the season. They beat them head-to-head.
You beat them head-to-head, and you have the same record. We're not talking that Miami's got 3 losses and Notre Dame has 2 losses.
That would make sense.
Right.
That if you beat them head-to-head, and then let's say Miami free-falled and lost 4 or 5 games, and Notre Dame lost 2. But if you have the same record and you beat them head-to-head, that should be the automatic tiebreaker. Right. Miami should be ranked higher than them.
Right. So let's talk about Notre Dame and let's talk about Alabama. Because Alabama's apparently on the hot seat, but Notre Dame is sitting pretty. Let's talk about Notre Dame. Let's just go to Notre Dame for a second. Lost to Miami. Stop acting like they beat them. Well, they didn't win the game.
It's a loss.
You know, any team ranked in the top 10 has beaten top-tier teams except for Notre Dame. Except for Notre Dame. And except for Oregon. So, I mean, Oregon beat Iowa, but they're getting credit for beating Penn State. Notre Dame lost to Miami, lost to Texas A&M, beat Purdue, has no wins in the Big Ten still, beat Arkansas, not ranked, beat Boise State when they were not ranked, beat NC State, not ranked, beat USC, who's okay, not great, quad 2, beat Boston College, beat Navy, beat Pitt. I'll give them the win over Pitt. I'll respect them for the win over Navy, but they beat Navy every year. So when I really look at this thing, I say, okay, you beat Pitt. Okay, you beat USC. You got 2 quad 2 wins. I'm going to give Navy a quad 2 win. You have 3 quad 2 wins. The best opponents you played, you did not beat. Let's look at Alabama because, again, Notre Dame is 8-2. Again, Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference. Again, Notre Dame doesn't have the competition that Alabama has. But let's just have the conversation. 8-2 versus 8-2. Alabama's almost out, but Notre Dame is going to win the championship. Now, let's talk about Alabama just for a second. because I was on the committee call. I listened to it last week. I listened to it the last 2 weeks. What did they say about Notre Dame? They said Notre Dame, after losing their first 2 games, they've gone on a tear. They won 7 in a row. They're making it happen.
They're just looking for reasons to let them in. That's all, because of the money.
They passed the eye test. This is what they said. They passed the eye test. We like their quarterback. They went on a 7-0 run at the time since losing their first 2 games. Well, guess what? Alabama went on an 8-0 run after losing only 1 game, not 2 games. And guess what? They beat good competition. Notre Dame lost to the best competitors that they had. Alabama lost to Florida State. Then they beat Louisiana, Monroe, Wisconsin, whatever. Throw those away. So then
they beat Georgia.
So they beat Georgia at Georgia. They beat Vanderbilt. They beat Missouri, who is a team that I don't think should be ranked, in my opinion, or ranked toward the bottom of the top 25. But they beat Missouri at Missouri. Then they beat Tennessee. Right, they beat Tennessee. They beat South Carolina, who was trying to play spoiler. They beat LSU, who's done some good things this year. And they lost to Oklahoma by a mere 2 points. Alabama has more quad 1 wins than Ohio State, than Indiana, than Oregon, than Texas A&M in their own conference. So let's talk about what it is, okay? Georgia's only loss this season is to Alabama. Alabama, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Tennessee. They won those games. They won 8 in a row. So what are we talking about here? Notre Dame is safe? Notre Dame is safe? But Alabama's on the fence? Alabama and Georgia, this is what I'm going to say to you, Indiana. This is what I'm going to say. Let's play the game. There's only one team in the Big Ten that's really backed up the Big Ten bias. There's only one team that's really, really done it, and that's Ohio State. But there is truth to something a coach will tell you, and that I will tell you. The Big Ten isn't putting the wear and tear on the treads that the SEC is. So if you're Indiana and you win a game or 2 in the college football playoff, that's because your competition hasn't. There's something to be said about the fact that your body's not as bruised as it would be in the SEC.
Yeah.
You're not pushed as hard as you would be. What did they say about the old Big East in basketball? That you couldn't win the Big East tournament and the NCAA tournament in the same year. Only UConn did it. Why can't you do it? Because they beat each other up so much that the Big East tournament was better competition than what they saw in the NCAA tournament. And those games were dogfights. And your body was put into it. We're not machines. We're not robots.
Remember the 6 overtime game that we watched at your house? The Johnny Flynn game from 2009, 16 years ago.
Right.
That was the never-ending game till like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Those were some of the greatest games ever. I missed the old Big East at Madison Square Garden with those marquee schools that a lot of them have left the conference. Wish they would have all stayed. But, of course, they left for money and everything. But, yeah, just like that, or SEC in football, week after week, your body suffers punishment. It's like a mini car wreck week after week. It's very hard to survive that gauntlet, where other schools are getting free passes and they're at best maybe surviving 2 good games a year that if you win them, you'll get to the playoff. Where in the SEC, it's week after week to survive. And after you survive, you might not have anything left in the tank. So I wouldn't be shocked, as great as some of the teams that could be in the SEC, that they might not win the national title a lot of years. They'll get to the playoff, but when it comes time for the championship, it's the team that is the healthiest and most well-rested and the hottest team in that moment who's clicking, which happened to be Ohio State last year, who somehow took the devastating loss to Michigan against their rivals and went mad as hell, not going to take it anymore, just like Sam Jackson said in his back in the day in his movie A Time to Kill, and went up winning a national title because they took that and they were rested, ready to go, didn't have to worry about playing in a conference championship game, because then Oregon took on Penn State in the conference championship game last year when once Ohio State got upset by Michigan, who wasn't that good last year. And then Ohio State got the extra rest, didn't have to get beat up in a conference championship game, and then went on a run and won 4 playoff games to win the national title, where it actually helps them. And it will help Notre Dame if they do go on a run. They don't have to play in the conference championship game. They get to rest after the last week of the season, after next Saturday, when they destroy Stanford in California. They get to rest. They don't have to do anything until the college football playoffs will start, which is in a few more weeks. And they'll be ready to go, amped up for their playoff game. So that will definitely help them. They don't have to have another game, another tough battle for a college championship to get their healthy bodies beat up. They can be rested, ready to go when it comes time for their single elimination playoffs.
Yeah, and that's the thing, the wear and tear on the body. Like I said, when I have these conversations and I talk about this stuff and I talk about my rankings and where teams are and
You're trying to be fair.
yeah, and I'm trying to be fair, but again, I talk to commissioners, coaches, and people that have are either know about the decision making room, know people within the decision making. I'm talking to bowl people. Like I'm having conversations with the inner workings of college football. I'm not just like a fan that's out here screaming because I want my team to get it. I mean, I talked to a Notre Dame fan last year and I talked to them about their bias. The person looked at the ground, smiled, and they said, "You're not wrong." And so, I mean, people know where you stand in this thing when you really sit back and look at it. But the reality of it all, like I said before, is, and Murph even said this when we've had our heated discussions about the Big Ten. He goes, "You've never said that Ohio State was a bad team. I didn't say Indiana was a bad team." So when Ohio State won the national championship and they're like, "Well, Dan, you can't be excited because you don't like the Big Ten, you don't like Ohio State." I said, "This has nothing to do with me. This has nothing to do with what I like and what I don't like. And I don't dislike any conference. What this has to do with is the truth. What it has to do with is if Ohio State was the 9 seed and they had to play on the road at Tennessee, do they even win that first round game and get to the national championship, knowing that the home team has a massive advantage in being there?" I was at Penn State. The advantage was uncanny that they had over SMU. So the advantage in the weather, the advantage in being at home, 106,000 plus people, most of them cheering on Penn State. I couldn't hear at the top of the stadium. I'm confident that Kevin Jennings couldn't hear on the field. So when you look at these things and you look at all the factors that go into it, it's not as simple as, well, they're undefeated. Because again, when Memphis was undefeated, nobody said anything about them being a top team in the country. When UCF was undefeated, they didn't get to play in the college football playoff. When Cincinnati was undefeated, they didn't get to go anywhere. So, and keep in mind, the Cincinnati team that made it to the college football playoff, when there was 4 teams, they should have made it the year before. That year before that they didn't make it, I went to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl when the Peach Bowl was not in the college football playoff that year because they were rotating the New Year's Six Bowls in and out of it. And the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl was the first event I did post-COVID and like everything being closed. Flew down to Atlanta, not even for 24 hours, flew down, did the game, flew back. And I was at that game where it took everything that Georgia could muster up in their last 2 possessions to get a field goal to beat that Cincinnati team that didn't make the college football playoff. The next year, Cincinnati made the college football playoff, and that Georgia team was a Georgia team that had the same coach and a bunch of the same players that went on to win the national championship the following year. And first time I interviewed Nick Saban, I asked him about Cincinnati. He said, "There's no doubt in my mind that that team deserves to be here." And then people came to me and said, "Well, Dan, see, look, Cincinnati got blown out. So this should show you that they don't deserve to be there. The American doesn't deserve to be there. Nobody outside the power conferences deserves to be there." And my response was, "I'm sorry. Did Ohio State not score 0 against Clemson one year? Was Washington not blown out? Has Notre Dame not been embarrassed the 2 times they were in the 4-team playoff before they got into the 12-team playoff?" So let's be real about and did they not get the easiest matchup when they had Indiana last year to play in that game? So let's be real about something. Unless the American can score negative points, you can't do worse than Washington, do worse than a Clemson, do worse than Notre Dame being completely embarrassed in the 2 times they were in the 4-team playoff. So what we're talking about is fairness. What we're talking about is games played on the field. What we're talking about is what a team is ranked versus what the team truly is. Are you a number 9 team that should be number 37 in the country? Are you a 45th team in the country that should be 15? How are teams being put below other teams? I mean, you really have Alabama under Notre Dame when Alabama has the same record and they have multiple quad 1 wins. They have multiple wins against teams that were ranked, that have continued to be ranked, that have validity of being ranked, that Georgia's only loss this entire season was to Alabama, and you think that Notre Dame is above that? You think Notre Dame is above Miami that has the same record as them? You think Ohio State and Indiana, just because they're undefeated? Let me tell you something. With a Big Ten schedule like that, a lot of teams should be undefeated. Alabama would have loved to play a schedule of Penn State, Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland, as opposed to having to play Georgia, Vanderbilt, and the likes of LSU. I mean, Texas A&M would love to play that schedule. Ole Miss would love to play that schedule. Georgia would love to play that schedule. People have no idea. I would rather take an SEC school that has been beaten and bruised and is a 3-loss team. Like, I'm telling you this right now, Ross. Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, that's 4. Vanderbilt, that's 5. Oklahoma, that's 6. There should be 6 teams in the college football playoff from the SEC. And I would even argue, if some things happen, that Texas is going to be the best team left out. There should be 6, if not 7 SEC schools in the college football playoff. There should be no less than 5 in the college football playoff. And that's not because they're in the SEC. That's because they played good competition. That has held true throughout the season. Teams that were good, that stayed good, or teams that weren't ranked as high, that got ranked higher and rose up the ranks. The SEC backs it up. They get ranked high, but they play to the caliber of the ranking more often than not. The Big Ten plays an easy schedule, and you play a cupcake schedule out of conference most of the time, except for Ohio State and Michigan finally starting to challenge themselves. Penn State does not challenge themselves out of conference. Indiana does not challenge themselves out of conference. They're not challenged in conference. So the reality of it all is the SEC plays tough games out of conference, tough games in conference, and they win. Notre Dame doesn't have a conference. The Big Ten doesn't play a tough non-conference schedule by and large, and they don't play a tough non-conference schedule by and large. They don't play a tough conference schedule by and large. So what are we really talking about? The Big Ten is promoted for beating bad teams. The SEC is promoted for beating good teams. And at the end of the day, which conference is going to be standing at the end of things more often than not? Ohio State, they did what they needed to do last year. They're the one team that I'll defend in the Big Ten in recent history. But let's be real about this. If Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State, Oregon, Iowa was playing Alabama's schedule, we're talking about a 3-loss team that is trying to get into the college football playoff. And all I'm trying to say here on Wake Up Call and on everything that I do is you can't argue that being undefeated is the only argument you need when you don't give that argument to Coastal Carolina, the Memphises, the UCFs of the world. You cannot talk to me about playing your conference schedule and beating the teams in front of you when the SEC plays a tougher schedule. You can't talk to me about conference schedules when Notre Dame doesn't have one. There's all of these layers to this that people are not talking about. I don't care about the eye test. I don't care how good your quarterback is. I don't care that Indiana has arguably the best offense in the country, because you should against bad teams. But would they have the best offense in the country playing Alabama, playing LSU, playing Texas A&M, playing Ole Miss, playing Georgia? All I'm saying is, when you beat the good teams, let's have a conversation. Until that happens, shut up and let the big boys be where they're supposed to be in the rankings. I would take Georgia and Alabama over Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas A&M right now, because they've done more and they should have more validity. It shouldn't just be about losses. And let's be real. Who in the SEC is going to go undefeated when you have Texas and Oklahoma on top of having Ole Miss, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, who's going to find their way back up? I mean, what are we really discussing?
Well, it was tough, as you just said, it was tough before Texas and Oklahoma, the big-time rivals, the Red River Shootout rivalry. Before they entered, but they were just the Big 12. SEC was top-notch to begin with. Now you add Texas and Oklahoma. It just makes it week after week. It's like a mini playoff game every single week. My only thing that I would say is, and I definitely give SEC is a powerhouse conference. They go through a gauntlet, tough schedule. Big Ten does not. I don't like what the big boy conferences then will use as an excuse when, like, TCU got blown out in a national title game to Georgia a few years ago, or Central Florida went undefeated, beat Auburn in their bowl game, didn't get even a chance to play in the playoff game. Yeah. So they had to, like, declare themselves their own version of a national title and threw a parade in Florida. But everyone kind of laughed at this, and they're not real champions. Yeah. Like, so, and you mentioned about Cincinnati, that a lot of these powerhouses are like, oh, when the school either doesn't get a chance to prove themselves or they struggle in a big-time playoff game or championship game, they're like, oh, look, see what happens. If we would have let one of the big boys schools play, would have been a much more competitive game. The ratings would have been higher. They were like, oh, that's what it should have been. Like that year when TCU made the national championship game, TCU destroyed Michigan in an upset in the semifinals. And they're like, oh, but if Michigan would have won that game, it would have been a lot more competitive, would have been a lot closer battle. And then look what we ended up getting. We ended up getting a garbage championship game because Georgia wiped the floor at TCU. But then these games are played on the field. You got to beat who's there, and you got to prove that you can beat these teams. But I also don't like the idea that they're like, oh, for a while there, they didn't want to expand to 12-team playoff because they're like, what are the chances that a TCU or a Central Florida could beat a Georgia or an Alabama or Ohio State or Michigan? It doesn't pay to let them in. I'm saying let them in. 12 teams. The most I would expand to is 16 teams down the road, but I at least like it with 12 teams. Let even the smaller schools, if they have a great season, look at their body of work. If they have a great season, let them in and see what they can do against the big boys. I don't like the idea where sometimes they're like, oh, look, this school they cherry-picked. TCU got blown out in a championship game. Don't give them another chance. Just let only the powerhouse schools play. They got to open it up so all the teams get a chance to play and not just necessarily say that, oh, they had a great year, but look who it was a horrible conference. So I like the happy medium there. I don't want Memphis has a great season. I don't want them like, oh, look who they beat. They beat nobody. So they're just going to let the 7th place team of the Big Ten or SEC get into the playoff over Memphis. So I don't want it ever to become that. I want the schools that have really good years, even in mid-major conferences, to still have the opportunity to prove themselves on the field to beat a big-time school in the playoff. And if they get blown out, they get blown out. And that maybe proves your narrative correct. There's always going to be a national media narrative and bias. But, hey, one of these years, they're going to go in and be like Boise State was back in the day against Adrian Peterson in Oklahoma with a Statue of Liberty play, win the game, propose to your girlfriend at the end zone, and you never know what can happen. That's what makes the NCAA March Madness basketball tournament so fun with the Cinderella stories. You never know what the 12 seed's going to knock off a 5 seed. So I don't want that ever to be lost in college football where it's just powerhouses. Because at that point, you might as well just have Big Ten, SEC, those two major conferences form their own league, which maybe they will down the road, have them beat each other up for championships and let everyone else fend for themselves and play in the NCAA. Because it's not fair if then they don't give the smaller schools an opportunity to compete.
Yeah, and again, great points. And I've covered both, right? I live in the world of the quote unquote power and the quote, I don't like calling it that because I don't think it's fair. But I the legislative legal term is autonomy group, which is what they are. The SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC. So there's the autonomy group, then there's everybody else in the FBS. And I cover both. I live in both worlds. So I see both sides. And seeing both of the sides of this argument, there are teams that should be in. There are teams that shouldn't be in. And, Indiana last year, who would you put in over Indiana? Army. Army deserved the right for the butt whooping, like Isaac said. I mean, Army had the best season they've ever had in their history. And, they lost to Navy. Doesn't matter. The college football playoff makes their selection before the Army-Navy game. So that doesn't matter. That was inconsequential. It had nothing to do with it whatsoever. So again, there's all of these layers to this. And people don't even realize because they're so blinded by what they want that they're making an argument they wouldn't make for somebody else. When you say Indiana's undefeated and that's why they deserve to be there because they play in a tough conference and they're undefeated, you're not talking about their weak non-conference schedule, their weak conference schedule, and you're not making the same argument for the American, for the MAC, for the Mountain West, for the Sun Belt, for Conference USA, so for the ACC even. So you can't even talk about that. I mean, if Wake Forest was undefeated right now in the ACC, they'd be like, yeah, well, who cares? It's the ACC. Again, let's have the conversation about beating a Purdue, beating a Northwestern, beating a Michigan State. It doesn't matter. Michigan barely beats Northwestern, barely beats Purdue. What are we talking about? Those are that's the bottom tier of the Big Ten. And you're talking about a conference. When you talk about the strength of the ACC's not there, the strength of the American's not there, the Big Ten has 4 good schools in 18 schools. That means 14 of their... Do you understand that at the time we're talking right now, there's 10 to 11 teams in the American that could be bowl eligible? That the ACC... Georgia Tech was irrelevant. They're relevant. Duke was irrelevant. They're relevant. Miami has come back to a certain extent. Louisville is relevant. SMU has only lost 1 conference game in almost a full 2 years in the ACC and played for an ACC title game. and lost by a last-second field goal and went to the college football playoff when people said they're coming from the American and they're not going to be viable. Houston came from the American. They're viable in the Big 12. Cincinnati came from the American. They're viable in the Big 12. UCF has played spoilers in the Big 12, viable coming from the American. So all of these schools and coaches and student athletes that people have been disrespecting in the American have gone on to the quote-unquote power conferences, and they've won games. They've been successful. They've done good things. Remember how Cal wasn't a good team last year? Who cares about Cal? Cal Berkeley's nothing in the ACC. What a waste of time. Why'd they make that move? Who's the quarterback of Indiana? Mendoza. Where did Mendoza come from? Oh, yeah, Cal. And his numbers were good there last year. So if you don't have him in the transfer portal, who is Indiana today? But they came from a bad conference of a bad team. So they came from a bad conference with a bad team that plays no competition. Why is Mendoza good? So what are we actually saying?
He might be winning the Heisman Trophy. Everyone's
Right.
saying he might be the front runner to win the Heisman in a couple of weeks. So, but again, what competition has he dominated against? So we'll see. But yeah, he very well might be carrying that trophy in New York. He's had a great year, but has he beat the best competition? Does he deserve it? Who knows? Maybe there's other people you need to look at rather than just look at Mendoza and look at his undefeated record.
Yeah, when we break it all down, there's a lot of questions that people don't prepare to answer. I'm not going to give you an argument if I can't back it up, because why would I want to sit here on the show and waste your time? With that being said, Ross, before I let you go, we have not taken one commercial break. We've been on for almost 2 hours. So we're going to take a quick step aside for a fast break. When we come back, we will talk about Ross's Jets and my Jaguars. We're going to talk about how big of a fan Ross is of Justin Fields. We're going to talk about how mad he is at Aaron Rodgers. And we're going to discuss, are the Jets not doing the same thing they just did a few years ago, which was get a bunch of first-round picks and try to build a team around a quarterback? Are they not doing the exact same thing like 4 or 5 years later?
The definition of insanity. You do the same thing over and over again, thinking it would be a different result when it's not. And the crazy ex-girlfriend's going to come back and try to chase you around the house with a knife. So, who knows if that's personal experience or not, but I've seen it enough in movies that it's just the definition of insanity, and my Jets are about to do it again. We already saw the Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold show that didn't work. They're about to put all their eggs in the draft basket, and it's probably going to fail again.
And Ross talking about and a crazy ex-girlfriend with a knife in her hand chasing you around actually happened in my house. So, great analogy. We'll take a step aside. We'll be back after this. I guess everybody has their own Rose.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the Whole Frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942. And tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily, and we bring in local produce. We prepare it to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Avicoli's restaurant, located on 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York, has been serving our community for decades. Your place to go for home cooking on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road is just minutes from Liverpool High School. And every single month, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is on site, on location, with Liverpool sports, student athletes, coaches, and administration telling their stories throughout the year. We look forward to seeing you on site at Avicoli's for their casual pizza side, their fine dining, as well as their bar. And of course, you can order online at myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. For takeout, delivery, and catering, call 315-622-5100. That's 315-622-5100. Come on into the neighborhood spot Avicoli's, open 7 days a week in Liverpool, New York. K9 Campground Dog Boarding is your home away from home for your furry-loving friends. Open 7 days a week with drop-off and pickup times in the morning and later on in the day and early evening. K9 Campground Dog Boarding is the spot to trust with your dog for short and long-term stays. Call 315-299-4013 for more information. That's 315-299-4013, and go to k9campground.com as well. That's K9, ground.com, where you will find all of the information on their different cabins, which include the classic cabin, executive cabin, grand cabin, and luxury cabin. K9 Campground Dog Boarding, where your dog will have indoor and outdoor areas as well as their own private cabin for any size, any breed, as well as dogs with different needs. Dog parents and dogs alike choose K9 Campground Dog Boarding. Isn't that right, Lily? Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, hanging out with my good buddy, fellow broadcaster and writer, Ross Turetsky. He is a coach, he is a writer, he is a father, he is a husband, he's a son, and I consider him a brother. And I don't even know if there should be a word higher than that to me. We do need to get together. We haven't seen each other in forever and a day, but he is that person. And I hope you know this, Ross, and I'm going to say it to you in front of the world because why not? But you've always been there for me, and you've always supported me. You show up all the time. You don't make excuses. I hear from you at least once a day. And I mean, who can say they hear from their friend pretty much 365 days of the year, even if it's a simple message, a simple kindness thing? Have a great show, buddy. Go have fun. Sending me an article or something that you saw and you thought of me. To know that at some point in the day, at least once a day, you're thought of by someone. It's such a rarity. And I just want to tell you that I think of you. I appreciate you. I respect you. You know I love you. And our relationship goes far beyond sports and entertainment and jokes and all this stuff. So, I mean, I really honestly, I can't say enough to the fact that you don't make excuses. You don't talk about being too busy. You don't talk about being in your own world and this and that. You've always been there. And I don't know many people in this world that like once a day are like, hey, I'm thinking about such and such. I'm going to reach out and say hi. And you do that with me, and you've done it for over a decade. And I just want to tell you that I love you. I value it. And I just want everybody to have someone in their life like you.
I appreciate it, buddy. I feel the same way, and I get a kick out of it. If I send you a interested article about sports or entertainment or movie stuff, and then I see you repost it on your Super Powerpuff page or on your regular sports page, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool that he thought it was good enough that he posted about or wanted to comment or do a poll question to his listeners and viewers about what I sent him. So I'm like, I get a kick out of it when you look at it, and it, some of its stuff's great. Some of the stuff I sent you is probably nonsense. But then when you think it's good enough that you then post it on your page, your Facebook and social media pages, I think I get a kick out of that. So I appreciate it, buddy.
I always tell people, I'm like, Ross Turetsky is the unofficial producer of the work that I'm doing out here, because you always send me great stuff and you cause me to go and look at things and pay attention to things. So a lot of the stuff that we put out there, I give credit to you for, in the hustle and bustle of life, sending me information, say, hey, check this out, make sure you look at this. And, because of you, we've had conversations here on the show about certain things. So I give you a ton of credit, because I've done a lot of this, building with God and I, and, doing 20 different things. And I don't think you know how much you help me to make sure that I have eyes and ears in places that I should. And so it really goes a long way that you've been such a huge assist in this. Put John Stockton to the side, put all these guys to the side when it comes to.
I just can't wear short shorts. Those short shorts, those were a little too tight. They're too low, too tight. Got to have them around the knees or above the knees. I can't really say what we called them. They were.
I know what I call them. Yeah.
I'll say it rhymes with gut huggers, but
yes,
not huggers. I won't say the words because it's a little crude. But that's what those little 80s short shorts look like. I can't pull those off. I don't have the legs for it. It wouldn't look right on me. John Stockton, he was able to make it work with his hairy legs.
Yeah. It's the chipmunk treasure chest. But yeah, I thought the exact thing that you thought rhymes with what you said. So let's get into the Jets and the Jaguars quick here. My Jaguars have been an enigma.
They have a winning record. They do well. They just beat up on the Chargers. That was impressive. After the Chargers beat up on the Steelers on Sunday Night Football. And by the way, I don't know if I told you, I was actually at that game. I was with my wife in LA for 4 days, a little over a week ago.
Oh yeah, I did not know you were at the.
We were at that game on Sunday Night Football. We had planned that trip. Okay. My wife loves the Steelers.
Yeah.
We saw they were going to play the Chargers. Her uncle, who has had health ailments, we wish him well with his different health things he's going through. He loves the Steelers. She had said, I'd love to be able to see one more football game with him. So once I found out that her uncle and his son, which was around his birthday, which was Veterans Day, were going to be in LA for that game. They're big Steeler fans. I then decided, because it was our 10th wedding anniversary back in October, that I was going to plan a trip for 3 or 4 days to go to LA.
Yeah.
We got to go to that game. The Steelers unfortunately got smacked by the Chargers that game, but it was really fun. And there were some cool people. In the hallway, I saw Tim Allen was there. Looks very skinny. Had glasses in person. 72 years young. We love Buzz Lightyear there. Snoop Dogg was on the sidelines dapping it up with his Steelers because he loves the Steelers. Troy Polamalu, the Steeler great, was there. Mookie Betts and Tommy Edman of the back-to-back world champion LA Dodgers were there. Jordan Childs, the Olympic gymnast, who's also a Dance with the Stars, was there. And Dan Fouts, the Hall of Famer, came out of the tunnel, the great Charger player. Also the broadcaster with Brett Musburger from The Waterboy. I did it for Mama and all that from Waterboy. He was there. So we went to that game. We also got to see a Dodgers Stadium tour in L.A. That was fun to get to see their trophies and get to go on the field. And in their clubhouse, they said MLB rule, can't take pictures in the clubhouse. So that was great. And My wife actually signed us up. We went on a Warner Brothers tour. We got to see the back lot where they filmed a lot of the Batman movies, which becomes Gotham City, where they filmed Friends, where it's supposed to be New York City, but it's not. It's in L.A. And even where they did the fire escape, where Tobey Maguire is upside down and Mary Jane kisses him in the first Spider-Man movie, they showed us in the tour where that took place. And they showed us like under like protective glass where Heath Ledger's Joker costume is on. Got to see the the Batmobile, like the Michael Keaton one that I like, the sleek one with the fire out the back, or the Christopher Nolan one that's like a tank. So we got to see that, and we got to see Jimmy Kimmel Live. It was free. We won a lottery to get picked. We got to be in the audience on last Monday, our last full day in LA, and it was George Clooney, Mike Tyson, and Christopher Cross, the music guest, big in the 80s. They were the guests that night, and we got to be in the audience for Jimmy Kimmel Live. If you go on Hulu, on Disney Plus, you have to zoom in really close or pause your TV. We're in the background. We're not that many rows up. You can see over Jimmy's shoulder. You can see my wife and I there. But I tell you got to go on Hulu, and you got to zoom in really well, and we're in the background. You can see us in the audience. They had us clapping a lot. So we got to go on Jimmy Kimmel Live. So we got to do a lot of fun things, including that football game. But when I was mentioned that your Jaguars do well, just beat up on the Chargers last week, which was a big upset win. Most people didn't think was going to happen. Chargers were riding high after they had beat the Steelers that game, and we were at that game in LA. So I did get a chance to share that with you. Got a lot of pictures to show you of our LA trip that we took last week.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it seems like you had a fun-filled trip. You know, like you said, the Los Angeles Dodgers going to the clubhouse, having the opportunity to be at Jimmy Kimmel Live, go to the game. I know you guys get to travel a lot, and you know, I use you as an example when I'm talking with people. I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, when you're married and you have kids and people make excuses like, oh, we don't have time for friends and we don't have time to travel and we don't have time to be a couple and we don't have this, and I'm like, well, Ross and Abby seem to figure it out. So, you know, I commend you both for that and for doing that. You and I need to get together though, because we're only a few hours apart. So we need to figure out something here before the snow starts getting crazy. So I do have an idea of when I'm going to be around the Binghamton area. So maybe we can work something out in the not too distant future here so we can see each other, because like I said, we interact a lot, folks, at you know, all hours of the day, but we haven't been in the same room. And Ross and I used to literally see each other, go back to our respective apartments, and then later on in the day get together again, and we'd spend like half the day together. And that's, you know, this brotherhood that started in 2008 thanks to the beautiful soul and spirit of our friend Sarah George, who I believe brought us together. You know, this relationship has continued to bond and flourish. And you know, folks, there's friendships that should remind us how important it is that we are supposed to be social beings. We are supposed to be together. And it's something that I value tremendously when I talk about, you know, Ross and our connection. So I think there's so much value in friendship, and I feel like we have to spend more time with that and make sure that we make the time and don't make the excuse, for sure.
Absolutely. You got to make the most of it. Nothing is guaranteed in this life, and you don't want to regret things down the road. So absolutely, you got to make the time and make the effort, because we're here for just a short while. We got to make the most of it while we're here and still youngish, before all the gray hair sets in and it's too late. So we got to make the most of that.
Yeah, you talk about making the most of the time we have. So what have you done with your time this season as a Jets fan?
Look away. Been very frustrated. I was at the first game of the Jets season where it looked pretty promising. Yeah. My wife, the big Steelers,
you were at the Rogers Bowl. There was two of them this year. Yeah. So. And
actually got us tickets to go to that game because I love the Jets. She loves the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers, I had a feeling even in the offseason before he officially he was hedging his bets. Will I retire? Could I beg the Vikings to take me like Brett Favre? Will I play for the Steelers? Will I leave after the Jets have him fly cross country? And then Aaron Glennon, the new GM of the Jets, said thanks but no thanks. And he was very pissed off that he had to pay his own way on a plane to go cross country to be told 5 minutes later, we don't want you. He's like, you could have just texted me that or called me on the phone. So we went to that game. We knew Aaron Rodgers was going to be amped up and wanted to beat them. And my wife, and we had tickets already. My wife's brother actually had, through his company, had tickets that were even better than our seats. So we sold our seats that I had bought for my wife and I for a different anniversary present, and we got to sit front row. So we got to see, like, we were like right by like the front row railing where you could see.
She had a good view of Roger's ring that I told you. What did I say to you, Ross? We still haven't seen his wife. What did I say to you when he had the ring on at training camp?
Married to the game.
I said he's married to the game, and I said when he says that, when he says those words, this is a long-standing prediction of mine. When they keep saying, "What's this ring for? Why do you have this ring? Where's the wife?" And he's like, "You know what? I am married." And he looks around at the media and he goes, "Married to the game." And then he just stands there and looks off like, "Go ahead and ask me a question about it." I'm telling you it's coming, Ross. I'm telling you it's coming.
Wives, they call them the WAGs, the Steelers wives and girlfriends, have said they have never met this wife, this alleged wife.
Because he's married to the game.
She does exist and she's real, he's hiding her, or he, for some reason, for no reason, because he didn't have to, unless he thought this was going to fix his image. But if they ever find out that he's a Teo of this and has a fake girlfriend or wife, they're gonna destroy him. Like, he's a future Hall of Famer either way, but he will be made fun of ruthlessly by all the stand-up comedians, all the Jimmy Kimmels and Jimmy Fallons and Stephen Colbert's. At Saturday Night Live, they will make fun of him endlessly if they find out this is a fake wife. So yes, he has the ring. We were right up close when we saw Commissioner Goodell and Baba booing.
I just moved it. See how I moved it? This ring is just a spinny ring that my mom got me to replace a ring that I lost. I wear it on my middle finger, but if I shift it over one, I'm married to the game, son. I'm telling you right now, he's married to the Ross. I told you this, and I'm sticking with it. A lot of my predictions have come true. You know this. You've had predictions come true. My longest standing prediction is that Tupac did not die that day. But I'm telling you right now,
Elvis and him are still alive.
Dave Chappelle. Hey, listen, Dave Chappelle and I both have talked about Tupac still being alive, and I'm okay being in. If I'm in a small group and it's Dave Chappelle and I'm okay with that. But I'm telling you this right now. I told you at the beginning of the season, he's going to tell people eventually, yes, I am married. Well, why haven't we met her? Why haven't we seen pictures of her? He's going to say, because I'm married to the game.
But that's not going to work, buddy. Like, he will be ripped apart, because if she's not real,
I'm just saying.
He better find someone quick, a real person, because if that's not a real person he's married to, he will get destroyed. I know you say it's none of your business, but he will get made fun of.
It won't be as bad as when Dennis Rodman kept talking about his wedding, and everybody's like, who's he going to marry? And I remember, to this day, being in my Gammy Miller, my dad's mom's house. I remember being in that house, and I remember watching on the little TV in the kitchen when Dennis Rodman showed up, because the people are like, waiting, it's late, what's happening? Where's this person? Where's Dennis? And Dennis showed up as his own bride that he was marrying himself. Yeah. And so and people thought it was going to be Madonna. So all I'm saying is being married to the game is better than being married to yourself dressed as a bride. So whatever Aaron Rodgers does or doesn't do, it's not as bad as when Dennis Rodman showed up as a very ugly woman that day.
It's close. It's a close competition. But anyway, I was there, and even Baba Booey, one of the sidekicks from Howard Stern show, was there. And that was actually probably the pinnacle of the Jets season. They should have won that game. They were winning a lot of that game. Justin Fields actually played pretty well against his former Steeler team, running and throwing the ball. They were looking electric out there. But the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers, came back through 5 touchdown passes. Chris Boswell, who's an alien out there, he's unstoppable, kicked a 60-yard field goal, his longest field goal ever, to break the record. I know your Jaguar, to break his personal record. Your Jaguar kicker just broke the overall record. He had 70 yards against the Steelers.
Should already been broken, because in the preseason he had a 70-yarder. But I'm happy that he actually broke it so that they don't erase his history that way.
Yeah, so now he has the record anyway.
So he did it twice.
He's incredible. So the Jets, they lose that heartbreaker to the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers talking trash to the fans and saying, oh, look, I proved you wrong. So that was actually the pinnacle, because from then on, they've been embarrassed in most games. They've lost some close games, which are frustrating. Some games like in England, where they lost to the Broncos, were pretty good, but they beat up on some bad teams, Denver, where they just had to have a functional quarterback, which I've been saying for years on the show with you, but that hasn't happened. Justin Fields now has been benched. He's been very hit or miss. even the Jets postgame show, it might be very harsh to say, they flat out said he's not an NFL caliber quarterback. I'd say, I don't know about that. He's not an NFL starting caliber quarterback right now. Yeah. He's mostly good at running the ball, very consistent throwing the ball. So Tyrod Taylor has been mostly a backup over the years, but he's had some good years with the Buffalo Bills as a starter, a spot starter when guys get injured. Tyrod Taylor will be the starting quarterback. They've now benched Justin Fields after the owner of the Jets, who's a trade wreck himself, Woody Johnson, talked trash about Justin Fields a couple weeks ago, but then had to stick with Fields because then Tyrod Taylor's knee was hurt. They had won both games, 2 games in a row against the 2 Ohio teams coming back to beat the Bengals in honor of the late, great Nick Mangold, who was from the Ohio area, right by where the Bengals play. So that was great to see they won in his honor, and then they beat the Cleveland Browns the week after. But they got destroyed. It was close for a little while. They got destroyed by the Patriots, who were great with Tom Brady, garbage then without him, with Belichick, and then with Jared Mayo as the coach last year. And now Drake May has taken a big step as the Patriots' young quarterback. Could be Tom Brady-esque, even though they've mostly beaten crappy teams. So it's yet to be seen. But Mike Vrabel, who I thought was going to turn the culture of the Patriots around, they are a contender. They have a good chance to win that division over the Buffalo Bills this year, which no one thought was a chance. Buffalo was my pick to win Super Bowl 60, beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, win their first ever Super Bowl in the last year of the Bills Stadium. Before they moved to the new stadium, and Marv Levy, their legendary coach, has turned 100 years old. But now Buffalo might not win the division. New England might win that. So the Jets just got destroyed by the Patriots last week on Thursday Night Football. Was an embarrassment. So it's mostly been train wreck after train wreck. And then even what you were hoping, you were hold on hope. They have 2 defensive stars. They've now traded them at the deadline. Sauce Gardner got traded to the Colts, who are a winning team, 8-2 after winning some nice games. And all it took is Daniel Jones, just like Sam Darnold. All he had to is leave the Jets, and then he won with the Vikings. Now with the Seahawks having a great year, MVP caliber season. Daniel Jones, comeback player of the year, MVP caliber season, left the trade wreck of the Giants. Now he goes to the Colts, and now is having a great season. So both New York teams, it seems like you leave them as quarterback where you're stinking. There's all the pressure. They have bad players around you. You go to a better situation, you win, and that's happened with Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. Happy to see that. But now the Jets are horrible, and it's looked awful. I think you trade away Sauce Gardner to the Colts. Quentin Williams, their star defensive tackle to your Dallas Cowboys. So we'll see if he has a chance to make the playoffs. Sauce Gardner should make the playoffs with the Colts this year as a lockdown quarterback. So the Jets are a trade wreck. And as you said before we went to break, they're pitted. All their hopes are they have a lot of first-round and second-round draft picks the next 2 seasons. They've gotten these trades off Sauce Gardner and Quentin Williams. Hopefully it works, but pretty much the definition of insanity, do the same thing and hoping for a different result. They're pretty much bash your head against the wall. They tried with Sam Darnold. It didn't work out. Even though I thought he needed more time. He showed some positive signs. He's done great since he left the Jets. And Zach Wilson was a complete train wreck, showed almost no ability out as the Jets quarterback. His best ability was being pretty much Stifler, trying to find Stifler's mom in reality with that whole scandal. Because pretty much in reality on the football field, Zach Wilson was way worse than Sam Darnold was and was a complete train wreck. And it just hasn't worked out. So now they're going to try. And then they went with Aaron Rodgers, blew out his Achilles after 4 plays, had a decent season if you look at the stats last year. Threw 28 touchdowns, had better numbers, passed the ball than Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen, the MVP. But the team lost a lot of games late. They blew a lot of games late, the Jets. And so it looked like a failure. But Aaron Rodgers actually played pretty well last year. And I would have liked to see, especially to help Aaron Glenn, the new GM and coach of the Jets, have some stability, hold on to him for another year or so. He wanted to play with the Jets. He had built a house there. And maybe they could at least be decent this year. Instead, they went with Justin Fields for 2 years, $40 million, $20 million a year. That has not worked out. At least, they'll cut him at the end of the offseason, but they waste $20 million on him. And it's an embarrassment. Tyrod Taylor will be decent as a backup who now will start a little bit. But the Ravens are red hot. They're knocking on the heels of beating the Steelers for the division after starting off 1-5. The Ravens will destroy the Jets this week, and the Jets, they're lucky they won 2 games, even though that might have hurt their first round draft pick. Instead of getting the top pick, they might move down a few steps. But the Jets are a train wreck year after year. It's an embarrassment. Pretty much by October, I know as a Jets fan, my season's over. So I watch the games because I love the Jets. I watch my wife's Steelers games. Especially, I like to see Aaron Rodgers out there. And I like the Steelers even before I met my wife, but I enjoy watching them win for her. So she's happy, and I'm not sleeping on the couch. So that was the one positive, that my Jets blew a game late to the Steelers this season. because earlier in our marriage, the Jets kept beating the Steelers, even when the Jets stunk and the Steelers were good, and she was very upset by that. But my Jets are embarrassment year after year, and now they're going to try to pin their hopes again. When it failed in the draft 2 times in a row with the first-round pick of Darnold and Wilson that were bust. They tried Aaron Rodgers as a veteran quarterback. That didn't work out. And now they're trying it again. They're going to leverage all their franchise on another rookie quarterback. And let's see what can happen. With all the pressure behind him, it's going to be very hard for them to succeed. Who will it be? Would it be Mendoza from Indiana? Would it be Arch Manning, who his family members did great? Or Eli Manning did amazing in the New York market with the New York Giants, winning 2 Super Bowls against Brady and the Patriots. Who will even be the savior? And that's too much pressure to ask any young 23-year-old quarterback to save the Jets franchise, who, let's be honest, has mostly been garbage for the last 50 years, with a few playoff appearances sprinkled in with Vinny Testaverde and Chad Pennington and Mark Sanchez, who now is fired from Fox for allegedly, getting stabbed after fighting an Uber driver, Uber Eats guy. I don't know. That's insane. But let's be honest, the Jets have not made the playoffs. They haven't had a winning record in 10 years since 2015, when they were 10-6. Todd Bowles' first year as the Jets coach, and they still failed to make the playoffs because they couldn't, with Ryan Fitzmagic having a great season, they couldn't beat the Buffalo Bills and Rex Ryan when they were horrible. 10 years ago, the last game of the season, they couldn't win that game to get to the playoffs. Steelers went instead. So they haven't had a winning record in 10 years and didn't make the playoffs. Haven't made the playoffs in 15 years, when they made back-to-back AFC Championship games with Rex Ryan, who at least made them competitive and made them must-see TV on Hard Knocks and everything, and they lost to the Colts and Peyton Manning in 2009, and then 2010, January 2011, so about to be 15 years since they lost to the Steelers after beating Tom Brady and the Patriots on the road to New England, lost to the Steelers the AFC Championship game. My wife and I, if we would have known each other, that would have been epic. The battle over the Super Bowl, who's going to sleep on the couch tonight? It would be great to see that with her. And the Jets have not been in the playoffs now in a decade and a half, and I don't see that happen changing anytime soon. We're going to be getting close to 20 years now without a playoff appearance, sniffing the playoffs, and they're usually not even close to making the playoffs. So it's an embarrassment. As a Jets fan, I usually have to apologize and say, I'm from the New York area. What am I going to be? I'm going to be either a Jet or Giants fan. It is what it is. It's my curse in life. I would never wish it on anyone, on my worst enemy or my best friend, on you, on anyone, on my kids. I don't want them to be Jet fans. If you're having children, if they're not even born yet, if they're just a thought or twinkle in your mom and dad's eye, please don't make your kids a Jet fan. They will suffer for the rest of their lives. The only Super Bowl they have is Super Bowl III, which is about to be Super Bowl 60, 57 years ago, is Joe Namath. He must have sold his soul to the devil. They joked about that in Adam Sandler's Little Nicky movie as the son of the devil, because since that Super Bowl III in 1969, they have been horrible almost every year. A few playoff appearances sprinkled in. We'll be undefeated for the Super Bowl history forever, because we're never going to make it back to the Super Bowl as a Jet fan. And, of course, I wasn't born yet. I wasn't born for those 17 years. So I will never get to see my Jets in the Super Bowl. I've given up on them. I will watch them year after year because I'm a glutton for punishment. But my Jets are an embarrassment. And I don't know even when we're going to make the playoffs again. But Super Bowl, I'm pretty confident. And sad to say, my life, maybe my kids' life, they'll see it. But I don't think I ever will see a Super Bowl in my life. And I hopefully have another 30, 40 years to go. I don't see a Super Bowl happen anytime soon, and probably never in my lifetime.
Well, if Aaron Rodgers sees his shadow this year, it's going to be 30 more years of tough seasons for the Jets. But, that's he is Punxsutawney Phil to the Jets right now. But the reality of the fact, and a great breakdown of that by Ross here, and see how easy that was for Ross to talk about the Jets. It's the same thing, right? When you love your team, when you know your team, you know where they're at, and it's tough. They're going to lose Breece Hall for nothing because they didn't trade him. So they're going to lose Breece Hall for nothing. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. Garrett Wilson, I can imagine, is not happy with the situation, but they took all this young talent. They took all these rookie contracts. They brought in Aaron Rodgers, and they put all of this young talent around him, and it didn't work. And now they've lost a lot of this talent. Allegedly, the Cowboys wanted Quinnen Williams in a potential trade for Micah Parsons during the season, which didn't happen. And then they end up getting Quinnen Williams anyways from the Jets. You see Ahmad Sauce Gardner, who I covered in college at Cincinnati. He has gone on to be a Colt. The Colts are one of the best teams in the country right now. Daniel Jones has proven to be a serviceable quarterback. Somebody I covered in college that was trained by a quarterback guru, and David Cutcliffe, who also trained the Mannings, Eli and Peyton, who went on to each win 2 Super Bowls apiece. So there's
He was supposed to be our Deion Sanders, Sauce Gardner. He was supposed to be our lockdown quarterback for the next decade and a half, and he's done some really good things with the Jets, but now he's gone. So it's like they don't have anyone. Garrett Wilson will probably want to leave in the near future. And I like Aaron Glenn. He was a great Jet player, great defense career for the Detroit Lions. But is he going to be able to get it done? Is anyone going to be able to get it done? And again, who will the Jets draft high in the NFL draft? And what will they surround him with to give him any chance? Because in 3-4 years, if it doesn't work out again, they'll be labeled as a bust, even if they end up doing well, like Sam Darnold in their second or third location. And we'll be in the same situation, same predicament, trying to get first-round pick, trying to draft our quarterback in the future every 3 to 4 years. That's not how you run a franchise, is being complete garbage. And then every 3-4 years, like running for president, running for political office, you try to then draft another quarterback. He's a bust, does well elsewhere, and then you end up losing him. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, well, and I said it. I said they had 2 years, probably, maybe 3, but probably 2 years to figure things out with Aaron Rodgers and to see if it works and hope it works. And if it doesn't, you're going to have Aaron Rodgers and the contracts of these players all up. That's what happened. They moved a bunch of them. They kept Breece Hall. They kept Garrett Wilson. They no longer have Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is doing well. And I was like, to Jets fans, I said they're going to watch him do well and probably make the playoffs with the Steelers, and they're going to be thinking, what the heck did we do? We spit into the wind many years ago. How is it coming back to us? So I'm hoping the best for the Jets, hoping the best for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, really hoping the best for both teams so that Ross and Abby can sleep in their own bed.
That's optimism. They're 6-4. Yeah. They had a few losses, including they got blown up by the Rams in London a few weeks back. But they had a nice signature win at home against the Chargers, who was considered one of the best teams in the AFC, against Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert at LA, who LA was riding high 7-3 coming to that game. That's a nice win for your Jaguars. It stinks that Travis Hunter's now out for the season, the two-way star Heisman Trophy winner for Colorado, injured his knee, had to get surgery. Hopefully he'll be back better next year. I don't know if he says he wants to continue being a two-way player, if that will be extra stress coming off the knee surgery, if he'll have to limit that, or if he'll be guns blazing again and he'll do two-way player again, and that will lead him to more injuries. I hope not, because he's an exciting player to watch. But your Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence has not been great, but he's been better. And they've been better offensively, I think, since their new coach took over, the former Bucs offense coordinator. I think things are looking up in Jacksonville, 6-4 with 7 games to play and a possible chance to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, the Jaguars, I got to ask the question where I thought they would be. And I said, I think they'd be at the bottom, like the last team. I said I thought they would be the last team, like 7 of 7 to make the playoffs if they make the playoffs. And right now they're in that spot of being the 7th team. They would actually play the Patriots, which the last time they did that in the postseason, I was there in Foxborough when they lost by just 4 points to the Patriots, or else they would have been in the Super Bowl in the 3rd AFC Championship game that they have played in but have never gotten to the other side of it. Tom Coughlin has been a part of all 3 trips the Jaguars have taken to the AFC Championship game, the first 2 as the head coach, the second as an executive VP when he was back with the team a few years back when Doug Marrone was the head coach. So, yeah, the Jaguars have been confusing. I think they should play the AFC West for the rest of the year because they beat the Raiders and they beat the Chiefs and they beat the Chargers. So I think they should keep playing the AFC West. But they gave up 26 unanswered points in the fourth quarter and less than 15 minutes of time because obviously Houston didn't have the ball the whole quarter. So
that was ugly the week before against
to Davis Mills. Yeah. But that's how they've been, Ross. They've been really, really good and then really confusing and then good again and then confusing again. And so it's how is this, if they continue to go between being a head scratcher of how did you lose this game like this to Davis Mills, a backup quarterback. I like Davis Mills. He's from Stanford. But you look at this and you say it's a backup quarterback. It's 26 points. It's a final quarter. You're up 29-10. So, the reality is what Jacksonville is going to show up. Which one's going to finish the season? Because their pattern has been like good, not good, good, not good, good, not good. So what are they going to end the season on? Not good or good? Are they going to do enough good in this back and forth to get into the playoffs. Is the next game going to be the not good? Can they be consistently good, not occasionally great? They were leading the country in takeaways in the first few games of the season, leading all 32 NFL franchises. Then they were quiet. Then they didn't really get a lot of takeaways in a bunch of games. They allowed Matt Stafford to have the record-setting amount of touchdowns that were thrown by a quarterback in an international game played by an NFL team. That's a new record. Matt Stafford has that in the game that they played overseas in London. So you beat the Chiefs on Monday night. You give up a record-setting day to Matt Stafford in London. You beat the Chargers. They typically had trouble playing the West Coast teams, beating the West Coast teams. You know, you did well against the San Francisco 49ers, but then you lose to a backup quarterback in the Houston Texans. So it's really what team is going to show up, and if they can break the pattern in the right way and not be good, good, bad, or bad, good, 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 or bad, bad, good, and just showing themselves to be consistent. They have a winning record. They're vying for something, but, I mean, losing any games in the division can come back to bite you in the butt. The Colts are a really good team. The Patriots are a really good team. And the inconsistency of the Jaguars makes me concerned if they have to play a Colts team or a Patriots team, especially in their first game in the wild card round. But they are playing good. They're playing better. They're doing good things. They brought in good guys. Tim Patrick did good recently. Jacoby Myers is a good possession receiver. Travis Etienne, Basil Tutin, and Syracuse alum LaQuinn Allen Jr. are a really good backfield for them. Trevor Lawrence is good. The defense has done some good things, but
do you like how Lawrence
ultimately it's the consistency. What'd you say?
Do you like how Trevor Lawrence is progressing? Because I know he was supposed to be like the greatest quarterbacks, forever, the next man or Brady, and he had times to struggle. He's had some injuries in his first few years in the league. Have you liked how he's progressed under his new offensive-minded coach this season?
Yeah, my response to how he's progressed. I mean, I like what the Liam Cohen effect has been positive so far. There's been good things that have happened so far with Liam Cohen coaching this team outside of how he says Duval. I think things have gotten better. Duval, like a Disney villain.
He's learned it. He's tried.
Like a Disney villain that dates Carl Turetsky. That's how he said Duval. But I mean, hopefully that's gotten better. But yeah, I mean, to answer the question about Trevor Lawrence, when people ask me, where am I at? Am I done with him? Do I like him? Do I think they should give him more time? Do I think extending him was a mistake? My answer to Trevor Lawrence is always the same. He had 4 head coaches in 4 years. 4 head coaches in 4 years in the NFL. Having the 4 head coaches that he had, including one
and
for
Urban Meyer was a train wreck. He didn't even survive.
Urban Meyer was a head coach for 2 months in the NFL, not even.
He was terrible.
So you say 4 head coaches in 4 years, which also means that you have different people that are running your offense, which means that you can have different quarterback coaches. Plus having an offensive line that could never stay healthy, an offensive line that was never the same from year to year. Different guys shifting in and out, guys not staying healthy, which is a problem Jacksonville has had through many coaching staffs. So you have 4 different head coaches, different coaches underneath those coaches, an offensive line that's inconsistent, an offensive line that doesn't have the same faces, an offensive line that doesn't stay healthy. Plus he played with a high ankle sprain and a shoulder injury, and I think at one point arguably played with both of them at the same time. I don't think that we have seen Trevor Lawrence have consistency in coaching, consistency with an offensive line, and being consistently healthy. And I think that once we get a full season under our belt of that, which could be this season and hopefully is this season, I'm not going to assess who Trevor Lawrence truly is in the NFL until he has consistency, and everything that's happened has been beyond his control. The injuries beyond his control, the offensive line beyond his control, the personnel on the team beyond his control, and the coaching staff beyond his control. So I don't think, even though we're a few seasons in to Trevor Lawrence's career, I don't think I can assess Trevor Lawrence as Trevor Lawrence sheerly based on talent until he gets some more consistency around him and stays healthy. And so I think this season, next season, like if you give me this season, next season, the year after that, and I can look at 3 years and say, okay, this is what he's done, then I can give you like my grade report and I can give you my report card of Trevor Lawrence. But right now, I think the report card for Trevor Lawrence is not fair to him because so many things around him have affected the team that really have nothing to do with anything he can control.
Yeah, I think that it's incomplete at the moment, but there's been some really highs, some really lows, including that big comeback window, or is it they came back to beat the Chargers a few years ago in the playoffs, Justin Herbert and company, before they lost to the Chiefs in the divisional round, the second round of the playoffs. But a lot of coaches, a lot of fluctuated parts. So he needs the consistency. The Jaguars as a team this year and need to get consistency and find that and achieve that. But I think Trevor Lawrence is not a complete bust like some of my Jets guys were, like Zach Wilson was. He's not a complete home run either. He's not been the top-notch player yet as he was in college. But he still has the ability. He's still pretty good. He's shown good signs, and I still think with enough time, and if he can stay with the same coach and offensive coordinator and offensive play calling, I think he has a chance to be pretty good. I don't think he's going to be a superstar, greatest quarterback ever. I don't think he's going to ever get to that point, but I think he has a chance to be a very, very good quarterback, a Pro Bowl quarterback, possible quarterback who could definitely get you to the playoffs and maybe even win you a playoff game. I don't know if he's quite Super Bowl caliber yet. I don't necessarily know if he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. I don't think he's going to be top 2 or 3 ever of all time, which some people, it was very hard to live up to that. When he came out of college, it was either going to be he's the greatest football player of all time, the GOAT, he's the next Peyton Manning to Tom Brady. He was going to have to be that echelon to live up to that hype. If he didn't reach the top 2 or 3 level of greatest quarterbacks of all time, he was going to be considered somewhat of a failure, somewhat of a bust. But I don't think that's fair to any quarterback coming out of college, especially with the elite competition going from college to the NFL. So I think he's a very good quarterback, and he's a chance to be a perennial all-star Pro Bowl quarterback who can lead your team to the playoffs. I just don't think he's ever going to be top 2 or 3 of all time. I could be proven wrong by that, and I don't think it's very hard to be on that list of the top 2 or 3 greatest quarterbacks of all time. He still has a great chance to be a very solid quarterback and be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league for this year, for the foreseeable future. So I like that. But yeah, that loss to the Texans against a backup quarterback, blow that lead in that fourth quarter, that was devastating, especially a divisional loss to the Texans without C.J. Stroud at quarterback. They should have easily won that game with Mills at quarterback, and they had the big lead. But it was a nice bounce back at home against the Chargers. So with 7 games to play, they're 6-4. If they could finish 4-3 and finish with a 10-7 record, that's probably enough to make the playoffs. And I would hope they can at least sneak in and get into the first round of the playoffs. My last 2 things with the Jaguars, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah,
Travis Hunter going forward. Did you like what he did as a rookie? What he did before the knee injury? Do you think he could still be a 2-way player with the stress on his body coming off the surgery? And how do you like your Jaguars in 2027? Probably going to play in your other adopted hometown of Orlando, Florida, by Disney World, and get to play some games there while they renovate the Jaguar Stadium. So I'd be interested to hear your 2 thoughts on that, on those 2 topics as a big Jaguar person for years, and for the last 30 years, you've been all over the Jaguars.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. My assessment of Travis Hunter goes back to something I said going into the season, that I like the fact he's a 2-way player and that they essentially got 3 players in one. You have a punt kick returner, you have a corner, and you have a wide receiver. So you actually have somebody on special teams as well as defense and offense. The problem is how many snaps he takes in a game. Coming off of an injury, they have to be very careful with him. Coming off of an injury, I look to like a Shohei Ohtani and say, pick the place where you want him to be and focus him there. You have a bunch of wide receivers now. You're hoping Brian Thomas Jr. can come up. Tim Patrick's done some good things. Parker Washington's done some good things. Jacoby Myers came in. You got Travis Etienne and Bajal Tootin and LaQuinn Allen Jr. catching out of the backfield. So I think focus on him playing defense and lean on him at the cornerback position. Have him hone that. Have him get better at that position because you don't need him to be a wide receiver. So I would say get him off of the injury, heal him up, do things the right way. God willing, he will heal completely and for good, and no matter what, through God, and handle well whatever comes his way in and out of his control. And so in Jesus' name, I always pray, and in God's name, amen. So, I would say play him on the defensive side, focus him on the defensive side because they need more help on the defensive side. And then to answer your question,
I think they'll still sprinkle him a little bit offense. I would agree that you should probably focus him more on defense, especially coming off the knee surgery. As you said, Ohtani, or someone coming off Tommy John surgery, you limit how many innings, how many throws they make. football, how many snaps he's going to take on both sides. But I would think his brand is kind of, and he played for him in college and won a Heisman, is the next Deion Sanders. And that's very hard to live up to. He's one of the greatest football players who ever lived, one of the biggest personalities to this day. Even when he struggles at Colorado coaching them, he's still a larger-than-life personality. His son, Shador Sanders, has a lot to live up to. Finally got to make his NFL debut against the Ravens last week. Going to get to make his first start this week for Shador, and he just slipped in the draft. But I would think they'll still want to sprinkle him in a little bit as a receiver. But as you said, they have more depth where he doesn't have to take too many snaps as a receiver. He can hopefully focus more at cornerback. That will save him. But I would still think they're still going to sprinkle him in a little bit receiver. I would have a hard time believing they'll totally wipe out his ability to be either a wide receiver or sometimes be a kick or punt returner, because he can be so electric like Deion was as a receiver, or returning punts and kicks where he can score touchdowns that way, along with what he could do on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think that they honestly, and like I said, they're getting 3 players in one. I think more than 2, they're getting 3, but I think they need to focus on the defense, focus on where they need him. I understand in an emergency situation, if a receiver unfortunately goes down and they need some help, they can always shift him over there. But I think put him on defense, treat the offense as an emergency situation. Know that you have an ace in the hole if you need it, but don't use it all the time. And because the snap count was something I was concerned with going into this year. And then secondly, on the Jaguars, I called it a year ago. I literally gave and I shared the clip. The clip is on our YouTube channel. It's on our social media. I literally said when they were trying to figure out the places and do they play in the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp Stadium that's right there in Jacksonville? Do they go to Gainesville? Do they go to Orlando? I literally had the conversation at least a year ago, and I shared the clip with Papa Joe of me giving my reasoning. I said, let's be real about something. There are direct flights to Orlando from all over the country. So when you look at this, you say this to yourself. If you want to build a fan base, you want to get people there that don't usually come, you put it in the mecca of amusement, arguably the amusement capital of the country, if not the world, Orlando, Florida. You have SeaWorld, you have Universal Studios, who just built their 4th park in the Epic Universe, which is 5 parks in one. So technically they have 9 parks, even though they have 4. And then you look at Walt Disney World, everything that you have there in that area. You have all those hotels, you have SeaWorld, you have Universal, you have Walt Disney World. You go to the Citrus Bowl, you go to Camping World Stadium. That is a stadium that is not being used by college teams. You don't have to fight with anybody. You don't have to think about scheduling. You don't have to change the logos every other week or every week on that field. It is an NFL seating type stadium. There is tens of thousands of seats. So you have the seating for it. You have the location for it. You have the history of it. You have the fact that you're not competing with another college or pro team. You don't have to change it week to week because of that. You don't have to change it if it's a baseball stadium. On top of that, you have the Mecca in Orlando, Florida. You have direct flights. You have people that will come to Disney, come to SeaWorld, come to visit their family, come to get away, come on vacation, come to go to the beach, and they will go to a Jaguars game that they would have never gone to. Oh, honey, we're going to be here for 5 days. We're going to Disney on Friday and Saturday. Why don't we go to the game on Sunday before we go to Universal on Monday? There are so many opportunities, and I named out all these opportunities, gave all of this, said that this was an easy decision, a done deal, makes perfect sense. It's great for Camping World. It's great for Orlando. It's great for the Jaguars. Probably better on them money-wise as well. I gave all of these reasons at least a year ago. So when they announced it for 2027, I just put my hands up in the air. I stayed up late at night, found my clip, went through all of this stuff to find my clip, cut the clip, put the clip in, and send it out to everybody. So my response to you is, it's what I told them to do over a year ago. I'm happy that the Jaguars listened to that idea.
It's great. It's great. And then, like you said, even direct flights. Even where I live in the greater Wilkes-Barre area, they even now have this. I've never really heard of it until last year, but they have now Breeze Airlines that are now, instead of doing connection flights like you have to do at Avoca at Wilkes-Barre's Great Airport, because we're in a small area, we're 2 hours from New York, 2 hours from Philly, the bigger markets, they have now direct flights even from our smaller town on Breeze Airline right to Orlando, Florida. So if I wanted to go to a Jaguar game, especially if they were playing the Steelers or my Jets, the family and I, or my wife and I, thankfully are My mother-in-law is really good to watching the kids when we need to go somewhere. We could just hop on a flight a few minutes away from the house and go right to a Jaguars football game. So and there's a lot of people around the world who will have that opportunity, and around the country you could do that. And as you said, while you're playing at Disney and Universal, you can happen to go to a Jaguar football game. My only wonder is with that is, will be so successful that people are going to say, why are we in Jacksonville? But as everyone's going to say, oh, they're going to move to England one day or be to a foreign country. Their owner, as much as they keep doubting him, and you kept saying that these people are wrong, they don't know the Jaguars like you do, who's covered the team year after year. He's putting a lot of money in that area, in that whole community. They're going to stay in Jacksonville. But I almost question that they'll be so successful in Orlando, along with Disney and Universal, that they'll be like, why don't we just stay in Orlando? But they already put the money to renovate the stadium in Jacksonville. So that's the only question. Will it be so successful, people are going to say, why are we even going back to Jacksonville in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, that could be the case, and it would make sense. I mean, see, listen, there's people that are not fans of football that may go to these Jaguars game at Campbell World Stadium. There are people that are not fans of the NFL that may go to the game. There's people that may fly down there and think, like you said, I can go to Disney with my family and I can go see my Steelers play the Jaguars. I can go to Disney and see them play my Broncos. I can go to Disney and see them play Pat Mahomes. I can go to Disney and see them play the Patriots. So there's so much to be said about the average fan, the non-fan, the person that just happens to be down there, the person that's looking for something to do, the person that wants to go to Disney or Universal, but the tickets are so high, so they decide to go to a Jacksonville game instead, that lives in Orlando or by Orlando. This makes perfect sense in so many different ways. And so, but I mean, to the people that think that they're leaving Jacksonville, like I tell people all the time, when you're physically there and you're watching everything that's happened and you're watching what they've done and how much money they've spent and all the renovations and what they've meant to the city of Jacksonville and the condos that are being built around there and the hotels that are being built around there and the restaurants and just everything and how they've changed the highway system, Jacksonville Jaguars have had such a massive effect on the city of Jacksonville that without them, it really wouldn't make any sense. It would be like gutting the city. So I think there's a lot to be said about all of that. And I've detailed it. I've chronicled it. And unfortunately, with some things that happen in life and how it always comes down to the people, the guest service, I'll call it, of the Jaguars front office is not great. They don't respect people that have been with them for a long time. But like I'll say this, whether I'm in the stadium, in the locker room, or watching from afar, I've still been able to tell you what's happening with the team, what's going on. So if I can talk about the team and what I know and not even be in the room, then I should probably be one of the people in the room. As always, Ross, I appreciate you for being in the room. I appreciate the conversation. I look forward to your Jets and my Jaguars having success, the college football playoff making some factual sense and not just being based in bias. And of course, I hope that you and I can figure out some time to see each other soon, because it's been way too long and it's been on my heart and on my mind lately. And I would really just like to get to sit with my friend. So hopefully we get to do that soon.
I would love it, buddy. And it's almost like a little early Hanukkah miracle. We had what was supposed to be an hour-long show, and it lasted 3 hours. So instead of enough, oil for one night, it lasted 8 nights. We got 3 hours. We got 3 times the show, and I went by really fast. My wife was like, "Weren't you supposed to be off the show like 2 hours ago?" And I had a blast. It flies by. Time flies by when you're having fun. So thank you, buddy, for having me on. Love you, buddy. I hope to see you real soon. Get ready for the holidays, and you have a great Thanksgiving with your loved ones in the Syracuse area. And we'll talk to you soon. And thanks for having me on the show. It was a blast. And go Jaguars. My Jets stink, but that's the case. And also can't wait to see how the college football playoff pans out as well. But thank you, buddy. And in the words of Schwarzenegger, it is not a tumor. Get down. Get to the chopper. Hasta vista, baby. And Jamie!
That code from Ross. I'm happy Zoom didn't take it away this time. So shout out to Zoom for understanding Ross's voice and the importance of Jamie. So I appreciate you. I love you, buddy. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Many thanks to you, and of course to Lorelei, my beautiful niece, and my nephew, Mr. LJ, to your puppy, as well as to your wife, Abby, to your parents, and to Carl and to the whole family, of course, to your wonderful, and to your brother. I want to mention Henry. I also want to mention Laura, your sister, and I have all the love and respect to Miriam. She always treats me well. And watching the TV show on Netflix about Judaism and the show Nobody Wants This, and having a little girl on there named Miriam just really means a lot to me. It's helped me to feel closer to you from afar and to hear the name Miriam again. So I gotta shout out your mom and just how wonderful she is, and every time I see her, and just how sweet and warm she's always been to me, and she's treated me like a son. So I gotta say thank you and happy Thanksgiving to your family, and please send them all my love.
Absolutely. And my wife and I just watched some of that show last night. Nobody Wants This on Netflix.
Such a good show.
Season 3 is going to come probably next year, but season 2, we're 3 episodes in. Very funny stuff. And as a Jewish kid growing up with the wild Jewish family members, it really touches my heart, and I can relate to it very well. And my mom, very lovable, but also at times very demanded. So I can relate to that when I see that on the show. And I think they do it pretty well, a pretty good job of portraying that in the TV show. So good stuff. And again, have a great Thanksgiving and happy holidays, and can't wait to see you soon, buddy.
Yeah, I feel the same about you. And I don't mean to do this, but you've done this to me so many times. So not to ruin season 2, but there's a person that dies in the water at the end, and there's a jewel that's thrown into the ocean.
Oh, gosh. Is Leo DiCaprio, the ghost of Leo, coming to the show? You just spoiled the whole show for me. I don't think I should bother watching the rest of the season. I'm 3 episodes in, and I'm only a third of way in. But, hey, I got what's coming. I've spoiled many movies, many shows for you. And I plan to do many more in the foreseeable.
And just like the end of Titanic, it's very fitting that the name of that show is Nobody Wants This, and nobody wanted Rose to not share the door. So Nobody Wants This very much was the theme of Titanic, the theme of the ending. And so sorry to spoil the ending, that this also ends on a door in an ocean with a jewel being chosen over a man. I'm sorry to let you know that in advance.
All right, thank you, buddy. I actually have a delivery. I'm gonna go your butt off the air. All right, thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
I love you, buddy. See you. That coming from Ross Turetsky one more time here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And like Ross said, we've gone about 3 hours here this morning with him. So we're going to end this video and end this audio feed, start a new one so that you can hear our fantasy football coverage coming up in just a moment. Stay with us on all of our channels inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios.